Good evening, everyone. Sorry for that few-minute delay, but we had a few technical glitches up here. I will now open up the meeting for the Mashpee Conservation Commission, Thursday, March 6, 2025. We're meeting in the quiet meeting room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. This is broadcast live on local cable channels 8 and 1072. We are also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. This is a hybrid remote Zoom meeting as well. So before we do begin, if you would like to join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. Before we start, I'll take a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. First up will be public comment for any issues that are not related to agenda items. So if there is somebody here tonight that wants to address the commission on a subject that we're not covering in the meeting, this would be the time. Nobody here that's interested in doing that?
I got no one on Zoom.
Nobody online? Nope. Okay, then we'll skip right over that. I think I'll go right into the hearings. The first hearing tonight will be 86 Pompanesett Island Road, Ed Shapiro. This is a proposed septic system upgrade. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. The owner of record is Donald R. Shapiro, and this hearing is continued from February 6th. Good evening, sir. If I could have your name for the record, we could get started.
Good evening, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. On behalf of the applicant Eric Shapiro for an RDA for a project at 86 Pompanesett Island Road. The proposal tonight is to repair and upgrade an existing septic system at the property. Just go through the resource areas and describe the system upgrade. The house is located on Pompanesett Island Road. To the northeast is Pompanesett Bay. There's a salt marsh, coastal bank coming up. The coastal bank is the furthest inland resource area associated with the water. We do show a 75-foot buffer as well as a 150-foot buffer to the coastal bank. There is also a flood zone that wraps actually around the property. So it's on the water side as well as on the roadway side, with the existing house actually being out of the flood zone. The existing system consists of two outlets out of the house. One goes to a tank to the southeast, or the left side of the house, to a tank and a pit. And then there's a series of two pits. The two pits on towards the middle of the house, that system is in partial failure. So they're looking to upgrade the septic system. They are also increasing the flow from 4 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms for the property. There will be some future renovations to the house. If it's anything that's any kind of land disturbance or anything, that will be before you under a separate notice of intent. But since there's a portion of the system failed that they've been required to pump, they're proceeding with this RDA to upgrade the system. So it'll be a proposed 6-bedroom system in the location shown. We are proposing an Aramco Advantex nitrogen reducing system for the property, which consists of a tank and filter media, 2 components that the water circulates and reduces.
Show only one.
We've provided nitrogen loading calculations. The existing property has about a 6.82 parts per million nitrogen loading.
All right, you are.
With this style system, that is reduced down to 4.79 parts per million. The system itself needs no other Title V variances. We've proposed it as far away from the coastal resource areas as possible and just in the best location possible for the site. That requires minimal to no regrading to make this system work. And just another note, we were in front of the Board of Health yesterday, and they did grant a variance for the 6 bedrooms from the flow neutral bylaw section of the town sewer regulations. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Mark, those nitrogen calculations that you read, are those off the plan, or are they, where are those? Because I haven't seen them.
We provided them. The final results are on the plan, but they were provided separately, emailed over to staff, but I do have a copy if.
I don't believe that any of the commissioners have those. Am I correct in
I
that?
didn't get
I
them.
haven't seen them.
Have you got them?
No, I haven't seen
No.
them.
Rich, did you get a copy of that? No.
I did not. Drew, are you there?
I do know they weren't in the original package, but they were emailed over, definitely over a week ago, because it's been a little bit of delay to get to the Board of Health, but I'd be happy to give you guys time to review them if need be.
Yeah, I didn't get them.
You didn't get them? What was the final PPM?
4.79, so it's even,
Factored in the existing building and all the impervious
correct.
that's there, but obviously you can't factor in planned future expansion.
Right.
So those would have to change. If this were all approved and everything, and we're another year down the road, you would have to come back with another set to reflect whatever changes you're going to make with
Correct.
the
Yeah,
building.
yeah, any new filing would have new nitrogen loading calculations.
I don't know how those do.
Most likely, any new proposal will have less lawn, because it'll have to meet your lawn bylaws, if there's even expansion to anything.
So
But,
there is a record of the email, but.
okay.
I must have missed it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Marjorie, you have the floor right now.
Is this a good time? Good. I'm just curious because I've never been through a hearing where we've got the application for the septic, et cetera, but no drawings for the home. And I think you said that will be under a separate NOI. I just want to know how that works. How does that work?
Correct. Again, this is a failed system that needs to be repaired immediately, and they do plan to repair it definitely before the summer, so that's literally in the next month or so. And they're just not ready for, with their proposal to do any further work on the site.
So you'll just file a separate one. And Mr. Chairman, we'll just consider it separately?
Yes, if indeed we even get one. I don't know. It's a planned future expansion. That's what the plan in front of us says.
All
So
right. So for now, we're just looking at the septic.
we're just looking at the septic. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Other questions from commissioners?
I have a couple, just pertaining to
floor is
erosion,
yours.
but just because this is new for me too, would there be any reason that we couldn't approve a replacement of the existing flow rather than approving an increase in the flow? So I assume this is a 4-bedroom home. could we approve a replacement for a tank that would serve a 4-bedroom home instead of a 6-bedroom, since, as you mentioned,
Well-
we can't look at nitrogen calculations for a plan that doesn't exist for future expansion?
The proposal before us is 6, with an approval by the BOH, which is a new twist on things, but it's been approved. So that's what they're proposing. So on a request for determination, it would either be positive or negative. If you feel as though you don't want to go that route, then you'd be looking at a positive determination.
I see.
It would then have to come back with an NOI for this particular proposal, and then you could work with conditionings through the NOI to reduce the flow based on the fact that it's only a 4-bedroom right now, and it may not get, I mean, it's all hearsay. We
Sure.
don't know. We don't know what the future holds.
Sure.
But that's the way you would deal with that.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. And I guess the other questions I had, just the site that, where this is all going to happen, it's a pretty good slope. I'm wondering about erosion control. There are a couple of conservation notes on the plan, and just wanted to know if we had the opportunity to hear what the plan would be for making sure that we're not increasing erosion at the site, and how you plan to stabilize that after the work is complete before we remove those erosion controls. And then also there are 3 really good-sized trees that are coming down for this, so wondering if there's a provision to replace them in kind.
So the limit of work is shown as the LOW
Yep.
line that's rather thick going around, so we've even provided access through both entrances. You know, appropriate erosion control will be in and monitored throughout the installation. It will be a vented system, so the wraparound driveway will continue to it'll be replaced in kind. And then over the system itself, most likely will be just lawn or mulch stabilization. We wouldn't want to put any kind of shrubs or plants over the system, obviously, to prohibit roots from getting in there. But it's basically, we're able to keep the same slope, the same, you know, it's not, we don't have to regrade the entire area. We don't have to bring in fill for it. You know, so it'll just be appropriately stabilized with the driveway and grass.
The driveway and the grass. Okay, and the trees?
We did not propose to replace them. If it's a requirement of the commission, we can add that, but we did not propose to replace the
Okay.
trees.
Okay,
Okay?
I think those are my questions, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? Oh. Sandy, all set? Neil, any questions? Good. Marjorie, do you have any further questions?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Mark, I have one question on the estimated high water ground table at 0.8. That's coming from a property at 2 Cross Tree Way, dated August 21st, 2023. Why was there no estimated high water ground?
We use that as actually a conservative amount. The witnessed perk tests that were done in November 7th of 2024 did not hit groundwater. One test went from 10.5 down 10.3 feet, so down to about 0.1 elevation. The other one went 10 feet down from 9.5, so actually to a negative elevation, and did not find groundwater. But we did want to use a nearby determination to, so the 0.8 shown on the plan should be conservative from what the witnessed perk tests found.
Okay. Dan, do you have any questions or comments that you would like to make?
I don't have any questions or comments. You know, this is it is a bigger septic than what was there, so, you know, but if they're coming back with a raise and replacing the house, it can be accommodated. The trees, that's definitely a point the commission always likes to see. You know, if there's any possibility for that, for replanting or replacement, that would be about it for my comments.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the public? None? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion.
We all don't know what to do when Steve's not there.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to issue a positive determination for this RDA. I think the proposed future expansion's a little sticky. I'd like to work a little bit more with the applicants to make sure this serves the best interest of the resource area.
Okay?
So,
Is there a second to that motion?
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Martha.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. On this motion, since the applicants are going to be coming back and filing a motion when and if they are looking to raise and replace, is it amenable to you, Sarah, as the proposing commissioner, to have us put this through on a negative determination and then wait for the next step in order to take the concern for, I mean, we're gonna have to, we'll have some other concerns as well, I'm sure. Or are you leaving this motion on the floor?
yeah, it's an awful lot of questions. I don't know, I'd like to see it as just a direct replacement and then, do all the expansions all at once. But if the cheese stands alone, the cheese stands alone, so we have to move along with the night.
I just have a question. If, as the septic it stands now, is it doing more damage without upgrading it and trying to work through it than?
That's a good question, it's a fair question. Partially failed, what does that mean in this
Partially
case, Mark?
There's two different outlets coming out of the house. One outlet goes to the tank in a field that's working fine. The other outlet goes to a failed leach pit, so it's not even a tank. So that outlet's going straight into the at least a tank allows the separation of the solids and stuff. Just one comment, I think if we have to come back with a notice of intent, we will come back with the full redesign of the house and stuff, but that's going to happen,
Years.
and not years, but at least in the fall, to be able to install something. So, this just allows, I know the homeowner does want to get this in before the summer, and that's when a heavy time of use is. If we get a positive, we're going to come back with the full project most likely, and this won't get repaired before the summer, and it'll be used with the heavy summer flows under this condition. So.
So, Mr. Chairman, how does that work? Is it failed already? Has it failed already?
It's termed a partial failure, and the engineer has explained which part of that has failed. It's pumping directly into a leach pit. Is that true, Mark?
That's what I believe, yes.
Right.
Let me ask, would it make sense to approve a 6-bedroom that doesn't preclude us from down the line, the 6-bedroom septic, maybe only a 4-bedroom is approved down the line when they come back, and we have the benefit of a 4-bedroom house on a 6-bedroom system? It doesn't preclude us from making a determination down the line for a 4-bedroom.
Sure.
Just a thought.
So a negative RDA for the future proposed expansion does not equate to an approved order of conditions for a bigger house on this lot?
No, this is
Right.
just focused on the tank itself, the septic proposal.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
reasonable.
have,
I'm wondering too if we could add a condition onto this that the three trees do get replaced.
On the
Yes.
RDA, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that an option that
That's an
would
option.
be, yeah?
You can,
okay.
you can condition our days.
Could we also condition that instead of a lawn mix, we do like a native clover mix for the
You
revegetation?
put conditions on it, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So you want to amend your motion to include the trees and the lawn mixture?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Amended a motion to approve a negative determination for this RDA 86 Pompanesett Island Road with the conditions that the 3 trees being removed are replaced in kind and that a native clover mix will be used to stabilize and revegetate the mound and that we'll see an NOI for
Wait a
any,
minute. You just changed your motion.
I did, I revised it. Yep.
So I think technically, Ms. Chairman, she's got to take that one off the floor.
Yeah, she has to withdraw that motion.
Okay, motion withdrawn.
Okay, so the motion's off the table, and you are now making a new motion.
Mr. Chair,
for
wish to issue a new motion for negative determination on the RDA as presented at 86 Pompanesett Island Road with the conditions that the 3 trees are replaced in kind and a native clover mix is used to revegetate the disturbed area to stabilization before any erosion controls are removed.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There is.
Marcus?
Okay.
Okay.
So now we have a motion and a second, and it's open for deliberation amongst commissioners only. Any questions or comments? Because it was a little wordy and retracted, and new one came in, so I
Sure.
want to make sure everybody's
Not
clear
going
on
on.
what. Any deliberations, questions? Marjorie, anything?
No, I was just going to thank Sarah for being amenable to that. I think it's a cleaner way through.
Sure.
I think for the applicant and for the engineers as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Look forward to the NOI, Mark.
Yeah.
Before I call for a vote, I spent a lot of time looking at this project, and I looked at all of the soil horizons. Obviously, we're down into the sea horizon, which is coarse sand, and this is basically a straight shot right through sand and on its way to the groundwater. When I look at Regulation 25, or excuse me, 24, unacceptable, significant, or cumulative effect upon the wetland values protected by this chapter from Section 12A of our bylaw, Chapter 172, shall mean any effects which, because of any short-term, immediate, or long-term changes to pre-existing conditions, would adversely alter any resource area capacity to, and they're all listed. The second one is to protect the groundwater. I am not comfortable with an extra 220 gallons of effluent, whatever the ppm rate is. Obviously, it's a Title V, I get that. But to put that much extra flow in, even though this has been approved by the BOH, that's their purview, we've been up and down this thing a million times, I get it. They do what they do. We do what we do. I cannot approve a negative determination. I would much rather see a positive determination. I would like to see the applicant come back with an NOI, even if just for the tank, to prove beyond the preponderance of any question that there is no long-term effect for those extra 220 gallons of effluent going through sea horizon coarse sand, a straight shot into the groundwater. So I'll call for a vote, but that's how I feel about it. That's what I wanted to get into the record. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification. If we do not have a second for a motion, it's left on the floor, correct? And the chair is not able to propose or second a motion?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I just don't know what to do.
Well, this is where,
Well, we would have to vote down this motion and take another motion from the chair, right?
well, it wouldn't come from me. It would have to come from a commissioner.
Say that again?
You seconded, right? Who seconded?
I seconded it.
Yeah.
It was seconded, so it needs to be closed out. It has to be, it will have to be
Yeah,
voted on.
This one is seconded.
Yeah, this has to be voted on, so.
Right.
But isn't that 200 extra only if they get the 6 bedrooms as opposed to the 4?
That 220 gallons would be extra effluent going into the ground, right?
That would
We
be if
don't
it was
know.
a six-bedroom as opposed to
Right.
four, right?
Yeah, we don't know what the proposal will be for the building. I think, and I don't want to put words in Sarah's mouth, but I believe that that's one of the motivations for the positive determination in the first place, to answer all these questions.
But that's like phase two, though.
Right, yep,
Right.
What's before us is this.
just the tank. Yep. Anything else? Then I'll call for a vote. Sarah?
I vote no to my own motion.
I think we have.
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes, right?
Yes.
I'll go out on line. Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote no, but the motion carries, so it's a negative determination.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next hearing is for 12 Bay Road, Elizabeth Benway and George T. Benway III, proposed replacement of existing single-family dwelling foundation within the same footprint and height. The representative is the owner himself. Good evening, sir. If I could have your name for the record, we can get started.
Evening. I am George Benway. I am representing myself for the proposed work at 12 Bay Road. So a little bit of background on me. My family's been in Mashpee for generations now, under the same name, George Benway. And I actually grew up across the street, the adjacent property at 11 Bay Road, so I might actually mix them up from time to time. So we had about 2 years ago the opportunity to buy this house, as I wanted to continue to live in Mashpee throughout my life. So with the help of my family, we bought this house. It's an old Cape-style house, kind of a beach house that needs a lot of TLC, as you can see. So really the first step is to fix the existing foundation. The existing foundation was actually hand dug by people, I think back in the 60s. It's a existing concrete block, full foundation. And there are multiple locations where it's cracking, it's crumbling, it doesn't have any damp proofing on it, so it's, moisture gets through and things like that. So as I live in this house and plan to live in it, for a long time, I plan to fix it up, make it better. So replacing the foundation is really step one. So some things on the site. Really, there will be no change of the footprint at all. The only revision to the actual layout itself is a relocation of the bulkhead from, correct, right there. It's kind of towards the front of the house where the driveway is, to be towards the back of the house in that corner. That's better for livability from my standpoint, because it's, towards the back of the house. But it also helps with the building setbacks, so that right-hand setback will go from about 23.1 feet to roughly in the neighborhood of 30 feet, with no reduction of setback on the other side of the house at all. Some things to note is the project is within the 75-foot buffer zone from the top of Coastal Bank. It is not, however, within a flood zone. Despite it being very close to the water, it's got some elevation, roughly 13 feet around the entire house. For the proposed project, the foundation will be dug out. The house first will be raised, cribbed in place, exactly where it is. The foundation will be dug out, with enough room for us to work, roughly 4 to 5 feet around the foundation, maybe a little bit less if possible. Foundation demoed in place. All that foundation demolition will be taken right into a truck and trucked off site, not stored or stockpiled on site at all. And then the existing foundation sorry, not the existing, but the new foundation will be poured in place in kind, replacing what is there now. And there will be no tree removal, no disruption of the coastal bank in any way. There will be erosion controls in place on the limit of work line towards the coastal bank side, protecting it from any possible erosion or outwashes from the construction. And that's the extent.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
How many bedrooms, I apologize, the size of the floor plan is too small on my office computer. How many bedrooms?
I believe it's a one-bedroom now. It's kind of an odd layout of the house.
And what are you planning to do with it? Are you going to expand the square footage of the home and or the number of bedrooms?
No, for this project, there is zero impact on the house at all. It's being raised in place and set back in place. I do plan to renovate it in the coming years as time and money allows, but at this time, zero change to the house at all.
Oh, okay, so when I hear raise, I think taking it all down, putting in a new foundation, and then building from there.
Oh.
You're saying you're gonna actually pick up the whole house, set it aside, put in a new foundation, and bring that original house back to the foundation?
Correct. Actually, yeah, lift it vertically in place with cribbing from the slab within the foundation. So lift it vertically in place, pour the new foundation, and set it back directly down in place on the new foundation.
So no change in the septic requirements, no change in any of that?
Nope, absolutely zero change to the septic.
Huh.
And as a quick note, the septic was upgraded 2022, 2023?
Yes. And it passed, as we bought the house, we had to have a septic inspection, and it passed with flying colors. So, yeah, we'll, expose the septic pipe, cut and cap during construction, and then reconnect as is.
Wow, I've never seen one of these, that's interesting. Mr. Chairman? Is
Yes.
there any that you know from the regulations, et cetera, that we have to look at differently because it's not really a raise and replace, it's a pick up and put a new foundation and drop it down?
Raise and put back, yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think I've ever seen one, a proposal like this.
No, I think we're, one thing I would question is where is the location of the tank? Because that's not on the plan.
Yes. So the tank is located where the driveway is, essentially.
Okay.
So it comes directly out about 4 feet from that bulkhead
Yeah, I don't have it on the pictures.
into the tank.
And that will be clearly marked for your equipment that's going to come in and deal with this. Is it an H20?
Correct. It's all H20. Yep.
Okay.
The
Still don't wanna
actual
drive
tank
on it, though.
is a good distance from the house and from the work, but it'll all be dig safed and marked as to not hit it in any way.
It'd be a good thing.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I had a question, George, just for
Sure.
clarification. So in the narrative that you submitted, we're saying roughly 5 feet around the perimeter of the building, and I just wanted to confirm, is that 5 feet out, 5 feet down?
So
Both?
that's roughly 5 feet out
Okay.
from the foundation. It is a full foundation, roughly 6.5 feet deep, so it'll be full depth
Okay.
of that foundation.
Okay, and this limit of work feels reasonable, given that it looks like on the back end of the house here on the plan, and when I was out there, it is very close.
Yeah.
The steps are 6 feet. So with the 5 feet out and the equipment needed to excavate, you feel that the limit of work as presented is reasonable?
Correct. I think it'll most likely be less than 5 feet, but wanted to, err on the side of caution that that's the potential impact.
Great, appreciate that. I think the only other comment that I would have is that that the area gets, reseeded, and that whatever silt fence is in place remains there until the soil is stabilized on the side of the coastal bank. So if that could be a condition or something to consider. It doesn't come out when construction ends, it comes out when that soil's not going anywhere, so.
Absolutely.
Other questions? One last question I have, George. On the plan, it says existing deck supported by a full foundation. Is that in place now or no?
Correct. That's all existing.
So there's no digging there on that side, or?
There is no digging on that side because it's actually a newer section of foundation that's in good
Okay.
repair.
Yeah,
So that doesn't have to be modified.
because you only have
Way.
almost 5 feet to play with there, and you're
Yeah, it's
across
tight
the
on that
line. It's
side,
going to
so
be tight, yeah.
It's lucky on that side.
Okay. That was the only
Yeah,
other
you can
question.
actually see it in the photos how that's a typical poured-in-place foundation
Yep.
versus everywhere else is a block.
Okay. No other questions from commissioners? Dan?
Yeah, so I just have a quick question. I do think this project is absolutely needed. You can see on the bulkhead, there's a good 2.5-inch crack right there. So I can't imagine what it's like underneath the house itself. So this is absolutely needed, I think. So the only question I have, since you are going to be excavating around the house just a bit for access, obviously, where are those spoils going?
The spoils, I was planning on putting into a truck since I don't have room on site to
And you'll just bring 'em back?
stockpile and then bring it back.
Okay, so the
Correct.
spoils as well, you'll be doing that. Okay, excellent. That was my only concern. Other than that, this project, I think, is acceptable for an RDA. The limit of work's in place. It is out of the flood zone, and everything on the site pretty much is trees and crabgrass lawn. So it could be brought back to what it was. I think a clover is a good option for this as well. It's minimal maintenance. It'll be greener than the crabgrass. You know what I'm saying? So I do think that'll help. So I do think this project is a positive. Yeah. Not positive termination, but a positive for the project.
Is Drew online or no?
Yes, yes.
Does he have anything he wants to add?
Hi, Paul. No, just reiterate Dan's comments and the comments that I wrote down for everybody ahead of time. So I think it's a good project, and I would recommend a negative determination.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry. I
Yes.
neglected to read one of my additional questions. I'm not familiar with the time to completion for a project like this. Do you have a plan for stormwater or rainwater dewatering in these holes?
I don't have a plan for dewatering. No, I anticipate the time of completion to be roughly probably 3 weeks where there's an actual impact. For instance, there'll be no digging for the first, at least 2 weeks where the house is being raised. There's no
Sure.
need to disrupt the site at all during that time. So that can decrease the time frame where we'll just dig, demo, and then pour back as quickly as possible.
Okay. It might be worth considering. I don't know if it's something that we can condition or add, but just thinking about erosion, or if we get a really big storm or it rains for a couple of days,
Right.
you know. And then the other thing I just wanted to note, I didn't see a stamp on the plan.
Oh.
Maybe not the one that I got, so just a admin point.
So I can say for RDAs, they don't need to be stamped.
They don't need
They
a
don't
stamped
need, so
plan.
RDAs do not
Okay.
require stamped plans.
Okay.
They technically don't even require plans. They
Really?
didn't want to, so.
Fascinating,
It is like
okay.
that, but, so for an RDA only,
Okay,
yeah.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Hearing none, I would accept the motion.
I'll give it a whirl. Request for a negative determination at 12 Bay Road with a condition that a silt fence, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna get this right, a silt fence remain till the project's completed or till the lawn is fully grown?
Stabilized.
Stabilized.
Yep, till the soil is stabilized, thanks. And maybe we could also condition the clover mix for the seeding.
With the condition of a clover mix.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded. Deliberations by commissioners. Anything? All set, Marjorie? You okay up there?
I'm good, nicely done.
Checking. Let me call for a vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
Good luck. Our next hearing is for 22 Napoidan Road, Robert L. and Jean M. Manzi. This is a proposed septic system upgrade. Representative is Engineering Works, and this is an RDA. Is he online?
Good evening.
Yes, thank goodness.
Good evening.
On your way to
Yes,
Dolby Road.
Come here with me.
Peter McEntee with Engineering Works, representing the Mantes. We have a failed septic system, and we're proposing a new compliant septic system, basically within the same footprint of the existing, only larger because it meets the standards of today's design criteria. The existing system consists of a septic tank that's underneath the wheelchair ramp, and 3 flow diffusers that are probably about 2.5 feet separation to groundwater. So we're proposing a leach field, a new septic tank, 2-compartment septic tank with a sledgehammer S86 to a pump chamber and pumping up to a leaching field, which will be higher than the existing grade, but approximately level with the end of the driveway, and result in some grading, toward the back and toward the side, but not a real intrusive grading. And there's 3 trees that conceivably have to come down. One definitely at the end of the driveway. There's a 12-inch oak and an 18-inch oak that we may be able to preserve. We got approved by the Board of Health for a 1-foot reduction to the estimated high groundwater at last night's meeting, but I formally talked to Zach about possibly moving the leaching field a little closer to the driveway and tightening up the strip out boundary, which is really only going to consist of the topsoil because of the current V horizon. And so we intend to keep all the V horizon soils, and might not get too much into the root zones of the trees. But we could conceivably tighten that up a little bit because the system's required leaching area is based on bottom area only, not sidewall. So there's no contribution to the sidewall being made for the capacity that we need for the leaching system. The area is going to be restored with lawn as it is right now, and in accordance with your standards under Chapter 172. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
So you said this was a failing system?
I believe
It's a
so.
failed, yep.
Okay.
It's actually, there's going to be a title transfer. It's for sale, so it's part of the sale.
I had a question, sir, just confirming my understanding. So we've got an approval from the Board of Health for a variance to address that the standing groundwater is at elevation 1.9, high groundwater is at elevation 2.6, and the bottom of this unit is at elevation 1.7. So we're basically putting this in the groundwater table.
Let me see here.
Did I get that right?
Not 1.7.
Okay, I saw that on page 3 of the plan here.
No, on page 2, if you look at the septic profile,
Yep.
you can see the estimated high groundwater is 2.6, and the bottom of the leaching system is at
6.7.
it's at 6.7, yeah. So we got 4.1 feet to the bottom of the leaching system.
Okay. I'm glad I asked. Thank you. Okay. Oh, and would there be a possibility to replace the trees? I feel like a broken record. The trees that are
Well, I
coming
think,
there?
the one that's up by the driveway is pretty diseased. I don't know where any of you got down to the site. But if we can preserve the 2 oaks, I think everybody would like that, you know, so.
Okay.
It's just that my concern was the proximity to the root zone, getting into it with the excavation, but, I think the 18-inch is definitely a good chance of doing that. The 12-inch, that may have to come down. As far as replacing the trees, I haven't discussed it with the homeowners, but, you know, it is something I'm sure they could consider.
And where would those go? In the event that you were to replace those, what
Where would they go, yeah?
what area of the property is suitable to have them?
I think the only place that would be available would be in the southeast corner of the lot.
Yeah,
There's a pretty good established edge of the clearing there, and you've got an oak and a couple of pitch pines there right now. They could put one up between the shed and the proposed leaching area also. I mean, that's an open area that's accessible by way of the driveway.
I believe that southeast corner is the closest point to the velocity zone, correct?
Well, I mean, I don't think
Not far.
velocity zone's quite a ways away in this property. This land subject to coastal storm flowage and,
You're one house lot away from the velocity zone.
okay, all right, so we've got, if that's the case, then it would be closer, yeah.
That would be the preferable corner, yeah, especially with sea level rise. Okay, other questions? None? Marjorie, you all set?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Dan? Questions or comments?
So this is an upgrade of a failed system, so it's a good thing. I will say with the trees, a recommendation I would have is to have staff monitor the trees if there's any issues during installation. Basically what happens is if the tree is not able to survive, then it would institute replanting the tree. If the tree is able to survive, then we're all good. And the reason I say that is because the tree is so big. Putting a seedling in or putting a
Yep.
3-inch caliber tree, I don't want to say as a loss, but if we can keep the big tree, I think that would just be better. So I would recommend that as a condition to just have agents on site, not on site, but to check, or have the installer just contact us if there is any danger to the root system, and then we'll assess it from there and include a mitigation planting in case of that event. So that would be my recommendation. Everything else with this project, I think, is perfectly fine. It is an upgrade system. It is in a low area of town that is highly developed. So I do think this is an appropriate application.
Anything from Drew?
No, I'm good. I agree with Dan's comments,
Okay, thank you.
recommendations.
Questions from the public? Hearing none, I would accept the motion.
I'll make a motion for a negative determination for 22 Nehoden Road, with the condition that the staff monitor the trees for survival, and if mitigation's required, then that will happen. Is that it? I think that's it.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? With the conditions of staff monitoring the trees and the mitigation plantings. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes,
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you, have a good evening.
Thank you.
good, have a good night,
You too.
thanks.
Just give me a second to clean up my desktop here.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It always is.
I can see it from here.
The
I can
next
see it.
The next hearing is 9 Santuit Lane, TD Realty Partners, LLC. This is a proposed raise and replace of existing single-family dwelling, mitigation plantings, and installation of IA septic system. Representative is Falmouth Engineering. Owner of record is R Investments, LLC. This is a Notice of intent continued from November 14th and January 9th. I do not have a DEP file number. Do we have one?
I do believe it got one.
It's
Yeah.
not on my,
Oh, if it's not on there, we do have one. We had it at the original.
I'm just
opening.
checking.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Let me,
Usually they're, on the column here, but anyways, let me go to the representatives. Good evening, gentlemen. If I can have your name for the record, we'll start.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney with an office in Sandwich, and I'm representing the applicant tonight. Together with me is Mike Porcelli from Falmouth Engineering, and also Andrew Garrelli from Yarmouth Port Design Group. He's going to speak to the landscaping. Mr. Chairman, just before we start, it's been a number of weeks since we've been here, and I just want to make sure that we have the quorum that we had the last time. Could you check on that, Dan?
yes, so I'm happy you brought that up. So with that being said, Sarah, you were not here for the first one. Not the first one, the second one that it was deliberated on. So
January 9th.
Yeah, the first one, there was no deliberation. The January 9th, there was. So Sarah, you were not here. So what that means is we are still, no, Sarah and Marjorie. Sarah was not here, Marjorie was, I believe.
So, yes, so I will be using, as voting commissioners, I will be using Commissioner Godfrey, Commissioner Shaw, myself, and I will have Associate Commissioner Neil Larson stepping in to vote.
And he was present.
Okay, yeah. I thought we did have a quorum. I just wanted to make sure that we're
Right.
going
I made
forward.
sure right before I came in.
Very good
I
question.
have the list right in front of me.
Very good question.
Thank you. So as I was saying, Mr. Chairman, it's been a number of weeks since we've been here, so I just want to just broad brush, refresh your recollection as what this is. So the property at issue is 9 Satuit Lane, and on the property, there's an existing home that was built circa 1955. It is in what I would call an extreme state of disrepair. I saw a photo up on the screen just as we were walking up. In fact, the building commissioner is concerned about this. That's why there's that red X on the front wall. And he asked that the property be secured with that construction fencing. And so the proposal, and I should also mention that the house is served by a cesspool. It's not a septic system. The proposed project is to raise, as in R-A-Z-E, the house and construct a new house. And when we came before you, the proposal was for a house with an attached two-car garage, a denitrifying septic system, and about 1,000 square feet of mitigation as required by the mitigation tables. The commission had some comments and concerns with the size of the house and with the drainage, and also we did not have a landscape plan at the time, and we were asked to provide a landscape plan. So we asked for a continuance, and I'm gonna just, again, broad brush this. Mike Porcelli will go over the details of the design, but we've eliminated the two-car garage to make the house smaller. We've expanded the mitigation. We changed the grading to create a swale for drainage purposes, and we have a landscape plan that we've submitted, and Mr. Garrelli will address the commission and talk about the plant choices that he made for that. So we think we've tried to address all the concerns that we heard the last time. We think it's a very good project because, again, what's existing, the house, I failed to mention, is perched on the edge of the pond. It's shown on the plan in the red lines. So we're going to be moving that house back, building a denitrifying septic system, and adding quite a bit of mitigation closest to the pond where it's most desired. So having said that, I'll turn it over to Mike Porcelli, and then after that, Andrew.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Chairman, again, for the record, Mike Porcelli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant. Brian said he'd turn it over to me for the details, but that was a pretty detailed description, so I don't know how much more I can add. But I will just give you an overview. This is a continued hearing. It was continued after we made our initial presentation. At the initial presentation, we did have a two-car garage as part of this, which was effectively like a 600 square foot addition to the footprint that you see before you now. So you imagine If you recall the original plan, it had a roughly 24 or by 25 two-car garage. That was adding to the impervious surfaces on the property. It was also further limiting available areas to provide restoration plantings. So we heard the commission loud and clear. We went back to the drawing board, and the applicant made a decision to eliminate the two-car garage. That opened up the area shaded in green significantly more for us to provide mitigation planting. If you look closely on that plan, you will see in red line work the existing house. So for reference, the existing house that you saw in the photographs is literally perched on the edge of the pond. And the demolition of that house is going to free up that area to provide a native buffer to the pond where one currently does not exist. We've designed the new septic system, and it's placed in a location as far as physically possible from the pond and the wetlands, away and on the opposite side of the house. It's an innovative alternative septic system. The nitrogen loading calculations were submitted. The nitrogen loading calculations yield 6 parts per million discharge from this technology. I had stated at the original hearing we had been before the Board of Health for the requisite variances, and they voted to approve it. That was several months ago. There were comments about the need for more detail on the landscapes, so Andrew Garrelay from Yarmouth Port Design was commissioned to develop the plan that you see up on the screen now that provides the specifications for the native planting. This is effectively going to act like a rain garden. It's going to be swaled, so it's going to be the location where the roof runoff and driveway surface runoff flow to, and the vegetation will allow for filtration through the root system. Today, there's no treatment of surface water runoff, so this is a significant improvement. We're more than willing to take your advice or any conditions you might have for how to treat areas that might be typically classic lawn areas that we know you would discourage, clover ground covers, other ground covers. We just simply need, some area to maneuver around the house and gain access. So that front yard would certainly be a candidate for something like that. And then there's some areas just around the edges of the house that we'd like to have not be planted with shrub material. Commissioner Zolo, who was at the original hearing, had asked us to show trees that would be remaining. The lot is wooded with, I would describe it as sparsely to moderately wooded. So we've identified all trees. They're identified that are intended to remain. There's no way around cutting some trees, though. That's just inevitable. I think the benefit of shifting the house back, eliminating the cesspool, getting everything as far from the pond, and providing the buffer to the pond outweighs the unfortunate fact that we have to cut some trees. So I think on balance, this is a significant improvement over what's currently on site. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew to talk about the landscape.
Hi, Andrew Garrelay, Registered Landscape Architect, Yarmouth Port Design Group. Mike asked me to provide the planting plan for the mitigation area. I went with a varied strata. We've got at the north end of the site, Mike has provided a little bit of a berm to make sure that the runoff from the road didn't come into the mitigation area, and the mitigation area doesn't going to the road. So on top of the little bit of a berm there is Alex verticillata winterberry. In that same area, I have Amelanchier canadensis, eastern red cedar to the right of that, Juniperus virginiana. South of that a little bit, we've got high bush blueberry. In the bottom of the depression, I provided elderberry. So don't go picking it for wine juice. But that will take the water, when those temporary flooding situations occur from heavy runoff. Some of the other plants in there is Viburnum dentatum, and what else do I have in there? More winterberry, a little bit as we come out of that toward the south, more arrowwood and bayberry, and much further south I also have a little bit of clethra that's just behind the deck of the house where it's a little bit higher ground. And that about sums it up, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Questions on what we have before us?
No, just that I think they've addressed all the concerns from the last meeting, and I think it certainly improves the property from an environmental standpoint, and then obviously how the property sits as is. I certainly want anybody to get hurt there the way it sits, so I think this is kind of a win all around.
Yep. Anything else?
Who was that, Dan?
That was Rich.
That was Rich.
Oh, there's Rich. Hi, Rich. Sorry. They don't put the camera on you enough.
That's a good thing.
We need a meeting owl.
Any other questions?
I had a couple questions
Go ahead,
and
Sarah.
comments. Gentlemen, thank you very much, and Attorney Wall especially. I just wanted to thank you for the waiver request. This was excellent and very thorough, and I really enjoyed it, which is weird to say, but I just wanted to say thank you for that. And I also wanted to commend you all on the vegetated depression. That's a really creative, novel solution to the challenges on this particular lot, and I think that the plants that have been selected are also going to offer some really great benefits for wildlife as well. So this is really wonderful. I did have just a couple questions, and forgive me, again, I'm not voting tonight, I'm just asking some questions. I do see on the plan that it notes that portions of the lot are within the groundwater protection district, and I did not see where the existing cesspool is located on the plan. Is that something that, of course, we're going to remove or decontaminate, remediate in some way?
I can direct you. Do you happen to have sheet 1 of my plan set? If not, I can do it on this plan.
I do have it in the files, yeah.
Maybe it's better to do it on this, actually,
Okay.
Dan. If you make reference to this site plan, the red line work
Yep.
represents the existing house.
Right.
If you go to the bottom left corner right there, and then go left about, I'm going to say 8 to 10 feet, it's basically right there.
I see.
That cesspool is actually in the groundwater, the bottom.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, that's
So
gotta
that's
go.
going to be just excavated and removed and backfilled
Great.
with
Wonderful.
material.
Wonderful. And then construction plan for stormwater, is everything getting directed into, I mean, the depression's not going to be able to take the water until those plants are well established. So do we have a dewatering plan for
Well,
construction?
the plan for the roof runoff and driveway runoff is that during construction, there'll be a limit of work installed, which is shown on the plan.
Yep.
Around the rain garden. The rain garden will be shaped and excavated so that it can still retain
I see.
the surface water during construction.
Okay.
And when everything is done with the house construction and the driveway, then the rain garden would be planted. So it'll act as a temporary retention, unvegetated retention area. And as soon as possible, it will be planted.
Sure.
As opposed to the more classic dry wells that you see.
Sure.
That have no treatment and are not appropriate for this shallow groundwater situation.
Understood. And I think my last question, and details on the proposed house, so do we have an architectural plan or a footprint? I wasn't able to find it in the documents provided,
We did
so forgive
submit
me.
architectural plans.
Yeah, they sent them
Was
in.
that-
They should have been forwarded to everyone. I
They're
believe
not-
they were.
I didn't see them. Is it possible to bring them up on the screen, Dan?
See what I got. So that would have been from the beginning.
Have them if you don't have them.
Yeah, do you have them, Brian? So I can just,
Sarah, we had
Oh.
kind of a design like this.
Okay,
We did not update the design.
took the garage off.
Take off the
Right.
garage.
Okay,
Because of time constraints.
sure.
But the house is similar to this.
2 stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although I will tell you that by pulling it back and getting rid of the garage, the house is raised up a little bit, so you would actually see a little bit more. Mike could maybe explain it.
I see.
In reference to where the septic system is.
And that green grass is just for,
This is
That's
just
just
yeah,
Okay.
illustrative,
yeah, it's
yes.
an architect illustration, that's not
Okay.
the plan.
okay.
Real thing.
Okay, so this is going from, can we just get a quick download just for the record of any increases to the interior living space and the bedrooms and bathroom count? I guess the bedroom count?
We can provide you with the plan, the revised plan, but I will tell you, it simply eliminated the garage. The floor plan of the main house did not change at all.
Okay.
But we did submit it, but I can.
I'm so sorry,
yeah,
I
we
didn't
sent
see
it
it.
out the first time. There was a hearing, but it was not deliberated on. Was
I
that
see.
November? I think it was.
Oh, boy, I didn't look back that far in
It's
preparation
available.
for tonight.
I'm happy to
Sure.
provide it, but just if you can envision that the garage has just been eliminated. The house lends itself to that modular change without a
Sure.
lot of additional architectural design.
Okay, okay. And the last question, is it, I saw, is there an osprey nest in the chimney? Did you see that?
Where is it?
A nest, an osprey nest in the chimney?
There could be.
Maybe?
There could be. There could
something
be.
we might
I'm
wanna-
surprised it hasn't fallen into the pond yet.
Okay,
Was unaware of that.
Part of
yeah,
that.
it looks like there's some sort of nest up there. I don't know if it's established or being used, but,
If that is the case,
Just taking it down.
yeah.
we need to
becomes
create
live.
another,
We have
yeah,
there is a procedure with the state. I can contact the state as well. It also will depend on when construction occurs. If construction is occurring outside of the window, then they will be all set.
Okay.
There's nothing illegal against that. You know, they're not in there, they're migrating.
Sure.
So if it is during that time, then I can contact the state and go through that.
okay. Just want to confirm, but it's a good project.
I didn't notice
Great
that.
improvement.
That's a good catch. Yeah.
As a point of information, Sarah.
Yes.
Or to follow up on Sarah's, the Osprey are on their way in. They arrive in a couple of days.
Yes,
And I know from the last time that I checked with the state, that once they're in, we gotta leave them in until the babies fly away. So if that interferes at all with your plans for construction, et cetera, you ought to get on the horn tomorrow.
Yeah.
let's just take a
Because
peek.
the
Let's take a
Osprey,
peek.
they are so brilliant, they arrive literally within 48 hours of when they arrived last year. So my memory is that it's
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I spoke to my client, and perhaps it's, it's something he's willing to do, is put up an osprey pole
Be great.
adjacent to the rain garden. I don't know if they'll take to it, but it's pretty
I would think
unintrusive.
they would.
You have osprey on your roof?
Is there a permit?
Was
There's
it
a
you
permit for that,
that
right?
had osprey on your roof or something?
It's still disturbance, yeah. Doesn't mean that.
if you're gonna do it though, they won't even let you, they won't let you put up an osprey nest if the osprey has already chosen your chimney or whatever.
They do have a lot of stipulations in the regulation for the state, as well as since it's a migratory bird. So they do have a lot of stipulations. It comes down to fledging, and it comes down to if eggs are even visible, which means
Yeah.
that there would have to be an inspection by the state or a qualified individual. So there is a whole policy, a whole procedure for it that can be adhered to if
We
need be.
just offer it as a suggestion. We're not experts, but we'd like to discourage them from revisiting the new house, I guess is the way to put it. If we could.
Fair enough.
But when are you
Fair enough.
starting for the new house, did you say?
There's no specified date yet.
Okay,
So.
No, okay, I'm just saying, they're very punctual.
Certainly not going to be this spring when they arrive.
I would just recommend making if the commission's looking at approving it, then making a condition to ensure that the nest is either taken care of or construction is done outside of the time window. That's all. I think that's
Yeah,
perfectly fine
good.
condition.
Great,
That would be a good remedy.
Okay.
that's all.
Mr. Chairman, before you take the vote, when you were opening up, I heard you say, am I not eligible to vote? Was I not there?
Yes, you are not eligible, you were absent on the January 9th meeting, and we don't have a signed Mullen form that you've reviewed the meeting. So you're not voting on this one.
Well, I feel very left out.
Sorry about that. The law's the law.
The Osprey will be taken care of.
Yeah. So.
That's right. Yeah, just get the Osprey in there, would you, for me?
Any other questions? Dan, is there anything else you or Drew would like to add?
No, I think with the layout for the whole rain garden, I think that's fantastic, especially since the town has a tiny little landing right on the other side of it. So I think those red cedars are perfect position, as well as rain garden for this area is very good because the groundwater levels. As well as the fact that the garage was taken off, I think this is a fantastic project. So I wish you nothing but the best for it.
Okay. Drew, anything?
No comments from me, Paul. I agree.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the public? Don't see any. I would accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to close an issue for 9 Santuit Lane with the condition that any restored new lawn area is restricted to no more than 10% of the lot's square footage, and that the lawn mixture be a native clover mix, and a submission of a signed 3-year mitigation monitoring contract between the property owner and a qualified horticulturist or wetland consultant, and that the osprey nest is not in use. I guess staff would oversee that.
Yep. So time of year restriction on that, if needed, if applicable. So.
Okay. Is that it for conditions? Did you want to see that other plan of record that he was referring to for the garage?
The architectural plan?
We have that, correct?
We do have it. It was sent
Part
out.
of the record.
I will resend it tomorrow. If
Okay.
not, I'll definitely get a hold
So
of it.
the applicant doesn't have to resubmit anything, we have that.
No, we
Okay.
have that, yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, so we are looking at closing issue, 10% lawn, native clover mix, 3-year maintenance contract, and dealing with the osprey nest issues. Any further deliberations by voting commissioners? Again, it'll be Neil, Sandy, Rich, and myself. Anything? No? Okay, then I'll take a roll call vote. Neil, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Thank you. Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next hearing will be 23 Wilson's Grove, Clancy Construction, proposed raise of existing dwelling, construct, maintain a new single-family dwelling, IA septic system, landscaping and hardscaping. Representative is Strong Tree Engineering. Owner of record is GSG Nominee Trust of 2017. This hearing is continued from February 20th. Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brian Foley from Clancy Construction. I'm the project designer on behalf of Gary and Susan Gilberti. Katarina from Strong Tree Civil Engineers is on remote, and they're handling the site information, septic stuff. Should I start from the beginning, or we provided all the supplemental materials requested? The tree information on the site plan to be replaced with similar, the maple tree that's coming down, the neighboring houses showing the proximity to the property line, the waiver request, and the methodology report for the close proximity foundation installation and the cantilever facing 21 Wilson's Grove. All those items were submitted. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from commissioners? And again, I'm just going to remind Sarah, you were absent for that, so you won't be voting on this one.
I do still have questions, that was
Okay. But you're more than
Do you want to
welcome
go
ask
first, Sandy?
questions.
No, I just, as I recall, I think Steve, our other member who's not here this evening, had a question about the bulkhead construction.
We did consider the installation of a bulkhead. I've met with our excavator, who we used for the house across the street, 18 Wilson's Grove, with very similar, if not worse, conditions. And the cost of doing a bulkhead was just extremely prohibitive, especially for a 4-foot frost wall. It'd be close to the cost of the house itself to install a steel bulkhead. And at the end of the day, having had the experience of doing a similar house across the street, we deemed it was overkill for that. So the items listed in the methodology report are what we determined to be appropriate. The erosion blankets, limiting the overdig. When we do structural engineering, we'll consider an offset footing, if it's structurally sound, to move that footing edge a little closer to the house and away from the property line. If structurally sound, we'll keep all the dig soil off-site, and obviously we'll have silt fences around. Yeah, that's what we deemed appropriate. We did look into the bulkhead. It was the first thing we looked at. Was just very cost prohibitive and determined to be overkill when talking with the concrete installer and ourselves, which are the excavators.
Other questions?
Do you have any more, Sandy? No. Should I go next?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. I have just a couple of questions, and forgive me, I wasn't here for the first hearing, but I did look thoroughly through what was submitted. And I did just want to make a note that on the bottom of the revised, the plan revision letters that was sent in, there's reference to a waiver request to Regulation 25, and generally speaking, we need a little bit more than 2 sentences. There are certain things that need to be demonstrated in order for us to consider granting regulatory relief. And in particular, one that I couldn't find in any of the information was the compelling need for the work. I'm assuming that because the first floor right now is just over 7 feet, this is for flood zone, health and safety, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
But I do, just to be consistent with other applicants, we do request that when a waiver request is submitted, compelling need is demonstrated. There's a narrative about to what degree we're asking normal regulatory standards to be relaxed, and then there's a provision for us to consider how the project will enhance the critical characteristics of the resource area in the proposed project to be impacted. So I just wanted to put that out there
Absolutely.
as a note.
I understand.
I do see that there's a very small net decrease in impervious surfaces, which is wonderful. That's one of the things that we look for in the floodplain. And I went out to the site, and these houses look like they're just in wonderful condition. So it's kind of a shame that we're blowing up these lots at the moment. Most of the time, we see houses that are falling apart. But some questions that I had have to do with just cumulative impact. I know the neighboring house is also on the docket next. Is there a plan for, first of all, where will all the construction materials and the vehicles be stored? These are closets. They're like shoebox lots.
Very restrictive sites.
Yeah.
We are doing both homes at the same time in order so we can share the central driveway.
I see.
For construction materials. It's not easy. Like I said, we did it. The lots are all identical. It's very difficult, but it is a little better than a single lot because we can share that central driveway.
Understood.
It's still not easy though. Yeah.
Sure. And just wanted to make sure that we're going to be, especially for any fill or soil, that we're storing them in a contained, maybe a truck or
Any
a
soil
container.
taken from the site will be stored off-site.
Perfect.
And we will
Okay.
use a 16-ton excavator as opposed to a 30, I think, which would be typical, just to limit impact.
Okay. And then I've been asking this of everybody tonight, so I'm going to ask you too. What's the plan for stormwater management during construction?
Katerina, care to chime in on that?
Hello there.
Hi.
Yeah, so for stormwater management, you know, we have the typical, hello, I'm from Strong Tree Engineering.
Hello.
We have the typical solutions for stormwater management. As far as selective events where there might be excess runoff.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you.
We might consider additional drainage features as needed, but at this time, we're imagining that certain aspects of construction will be limited, not to exceed extensive time periods, and as needed, we can add additional supplemental drainage features if they are needed. We did attempt to assess and discuss these features within the methodologies that we added supplementally. So if you do have further questions, we can certainly attempt to answer those.
Okay. Thank you. I think the only other question I had is just in terms of final design, so that it looked like there were 2 driveways, and the one for 23, Wilson's Grove, is very large for a house that size. It looks,
The driveway?
yeah, the stone driveway to the left of the property? Yes?
On 23?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, the existing driveway.
existing
Yeah, it
driveway.
goes right to the house and right to the property line.
Yes,
That's right.
yes, and what I was looking for out on site was if there was any opportunity to increase the vegetation after construction, and I wonder if, since these are small houses, we don't need space for 3 cars reasonably, correct? I wonder if we could,
I totally share your concern. I have discussed with the owner ways to increase the vegetation.
Yes.
I think it'd be a nice idea to do the grass grids in the parking, so some of the grass can come through, maybe for part of the driveway. They're very tight lots, and if we can have any kind of strip along the foundation in the driveway, we'll certainly do that. But, you know, it is a
Okay.
concern of mine, too.
okay, yeah, wonderful. It would be lovely to see a proposal for how to incorporate more vegetation. Even though we're decreasing impervious surfaces here, next door we're increasing vegetation. We can't get enough of it in the floodplain, so.
So do you like propose, like, obviously you have the driveway where the tires would go down, but in between, a grass strip there, is that, would you consider?
Sure,
that?
I would like to see it a shorter driveway and vegetate part of that area. I think that driveway, I don't even know that my driveway is that long. Not that my house is too much bigger than this, but you know what I mean? It's a little house. I think room for 1 car would be sufficient, given the size of the house, if it means that we could gain that area in vegetation. I understand it's not my decision, it's just a suggestion for an
No, I
area where we
understand.
might be able to increase vegetation.
I totally understand. We're trying to do the best we can with the
Of course.
vegetation. It's hard on
It's
these
very
sites,
small.
but
Understood.
You know, I totally get it.
Understood.
Sarah, in terms of the driveway, I believe one of the aerials that we looked at in the last hearing showed a boat that was stored in that area, right?
Boat?
But
Yeah, there was discussion about the boat that was
would
between
do
the
it.
buildings.
We have no plans for long-term boat storage on the site.
I'm just wondering if it's seasonal, you know.
Okay, I don't
Probably
believe
why
so.
it's the way it is, I don't know.
And, you know, actually, another question that I forgot that I had until just this moment. We saw another project this evening where they're taking an existing house and just raising it up. Is that a consideration, just to minimize disturbance on this lot? These houses look like they've been well-maintained. Is there a way to just put it up on piles?
I get it, and I completely don't like wasting things if I can't to. I mean, I totally understand, but it's just meeting the flood code, the existing foundation being terrible, and then the energy code on top of it, which is very restrictive. And then if we're putting that much work into it, we want to make the house work for their family.
Of course. I mean, if we were to raise it up, potentially, you could even park cars under the house, and then we would have more options with, you know what I mean? I think there's some opportunity for some creative solutions here. Thinking about how close this is to the water, how small the lot is, and the good condition of these cottages.
I completely follow your logic, and it's
Yeah.
at such a strange height because it's not high enough to get anything under it.
Like
And if you
7
go
feet.
up any higher, you can't fit a second floor. and now you've got a single-story thing with parking under it, and it just doesn't work.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah, it's like
part
you
of
have
this
to kinda
is
duck.
increasing the,
Yeah, we're
adding
limited-
another story.
Yeah,
I
we're
see, of
limited.
course.
The ridge height's limited from the natural grade, but the
Yep.
flood height is coming up off the ground, but it's not so high that you can park under it.
And there's no willingness on the part of the homeowners to just not add that second story and put it up on pilings to protect the floodplain?
Again, I understand it would just make the whole project not worth it for them and their family. I do hear you, though.
Okay, noted. I will note that the houses on either side are considerably taller. I thought about that too, like we don't want to get in people's way of looking at the water or whatever, but, okay, so those have been explored, no interest on the part of the
Absolutely, yeah.
applicant. I see.
Absolutely.
To chime in for a moment, these properties collectively, both 23 and 25, have been obviously, the abutters have been alerted to these properties. We have heard from the folks to the west and the folks to the east of the two properties. Folks to the east have indicated that they have no objections. They call from California. And we have shared the plans and architectural plans, I believe, too, with the list to the west. So they are in the know. They are, the neighborhood is well and aware of these projects as they go along.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I've got. Thank you, Paul.
Yep. Any other questions? Dan, is there anything you would like to add?
No, as you said, these lots are extremely tight. I hear your concerns with that. I know one of the restrictions with piles would definitely be the height limit of the whole structure. So that could run into an issue for what the residents want. So since this is coming up to flood code, I think that's a very huge positive, especially for the area it's in. Again, it is tight, so anything you can do for this side. One condition I would recommend for any NOI is if there is any structural issues while excavating, you would contact Conservation Department. Or send us an email with a pictures and a report of it. And then obviously take care of it immediately. So that would be my only recommendation for a condition amongst, I think you had one tree planting going in.
Yeah, there was a maple we're going to replace with maybe a tupelo or something kind of like that.
Okay. Yeah, that can be decided, so that's not a problem. So as long as the excavation issue, or concern, I'm sorry, is taken care of and reported to the department immediately if there's any issues, I think that's the biggest concern on my end. Other than that, I think the project is good for the surrounding area and for the location.
Thank you.
And the 5 flood vents that you have on this schematic, that meets the square footage requirement for the
Yes, sir.
basement?
Yes.
I know that was one of the missing pieces last time
I
around.
did submit the flood vent plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything from Drew?
Yeah, just for clarification, because I know the waiver was brought up, so in their narrative, they did address the waiver, which was specifically noted, Paul, by you at the last meeting, that they need to seek a waiver for the setback under Reg 25 C7. So was it a full-blown waiver request with all the criteria? Was that specific waiver under Reg 25,
Yep.
which was stated at the previous meeting? So they have furnished that information, just to be clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, that was gonna be one of my questions, Drew. Good.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I actually did attempt to reach Drew a couple times prior to my filing to discern whether I had completed that fully, and I'm glad that I had, even though I was not able to reach him. Thank you very much.
Okay. Questions from the public? Yes, sir. If you come down to the microphone and if we can have your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name's Michael Piersak. I live at 19 Wilson Grove, which is to the right of the properties we're talking about. I do have some concerns. All the work that's being done, with drainage and foundations and new septic systems, and the condition of Wilson Grove now as it is, we have problems with flooding as it is. And I'm just not convinced that, I know there's no guarantees for anything, that everything that's proposed here is going to work, and, you know, it's not going to get worse than it is. So, with regards to Rule 25, I know it's in the reform of that's in its draft stages, and you applied for a waiver. Can some of that be implemented, like, you're obviously concerned about the the effects of construction on these protected lands and the drainage and everything. Is there anything that with regards to that waiver that can be instituted in the this project to help to make me feel better about my property not getting flooded any worse than it is? Because like, this is my only shot at it, because if this doesn't work, you build 2 new houses here, and it doesn't work, you know, I have no recourse. So I just feel like not enough is being done here to prevent any possibility of that happening for the neighbors, meaning me. So, any response to that, or?
We will discuss that in deliberations once a motion comes forward.
Pardon me?
We will discuss that in our deliberations when a motion comes forward.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, hearing none, no others online, I would accept a motion.
Make a motion to close an issue at 23 Wilson's Grove, and I don't necessarily know if this is a condition, but any issues with excavation, you would notify staff? I don't know if that's a condition or just, okay.
Yep. Yes.
And that's the only condition.
Yeah, I don't think there was any mitigation plantings. There was, what was it, 1 tree?
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there a second to that motion? You're out. Sorry.
Oh, second.
Thank you, Sandy. So the motion is made and seconded. So now we will deliberate under the motion. And Marjorie, you're still with us, correct?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
So-
And I just have a question. Can I go first?
I was going to, because I wanted
Oh, you go
I wanted to address the concerns of the public. Okay, so
Good to go.
I hear the gentleman from 19 Wilson's Grove loud and clear. Everyone understands that there's drainage problems in this area. The waiver request has absolutely nothing to do with the drainage. And what we're looking at is applying Regulation 25 as it currently exists. None of what's in Regulation 25, the new draft, which is still in a draft version, none of that is applied to this project. This is being judged and approved or disapproved based on a regulation that goes as far back as 2007, I believe. So there's nothing that we can move or transport over from our new train of thought, which, I mean, there is a lot in there dealing with issues like this. That said, I feel very good about the fact that everything that the commission requested was provided. I would like to echo the concerns of, if at all possible, to get some vegetative strips into that driveway area. It seemed as though the representative was willing to consider that and pursue that option. So I think that's worthy of thinking about as you vote on this project. Marjorie, I will go out then to you. I know you said you wanted to be first, but you're second. That's close.
Yeah, see, it's very, very painful. No, really, it's a good thing because you elaborated on, I was concerned about Regulation 25 and the waiver, and I can see what you're saying is so true, which is why you're chairman. Nothing that we can do now that regards the new draft. So I have no objections, and you answered my question.
Thank you. Anything else from commissioners? No other questions or comments? Okay. So there'll be 4 people voting on this. I will ask Rich for your vote first.
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Okay, so we will now proceed to 25 Wilson's Grove. Pretty much a similar type of project. Propose raise an existing dwelling, construct and maintain a new single-family dwelling with an IA septic system, landscaping and hardscaping, representative of Strong Tree Engineering. Owner of record is Sherry and Manuela Guiva Trusts, and this notice of intent is continued from February 20th. So we'll reset and start all over again. If I can have your name for the record first.
Good evening, Brian Foley from Clancy Construction, on behalf of Surrey and Manuela Gouveia, 25.
Also here from Strong Tree, thank you.
Thank you.
So very similar set of conditions, it's just on the other side. Main differences are 29 Wilson's Grove is a bit closer in proximity to, we have the same 4-foot setback on both projects to the shared property line. This one is slightly closer to the
You don't mean
neighbor.
29, you mean 25.
Nope, I
Right?
meant 29. 29 is shown on the site plan next to 25. I'm just talking about the proximity between the houses.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. This project is slightly larger in its lot coverage, just by a little bit. This project does not have the same cantilever condition that the other board member requested a methodology for, but it does have the same foundation conditions, so I submitted a similar methodology report, just without the cantilever section. Slightly different septic configuration. The 23 Wilson's Grove had some variances that were inherited, I believe, with lower groundwater. Again, that's Strong Trees domain, but I believe that's the story. So we're slightly higher here, and we were also trying not to have the systems right on top of each other on the shared property line. The lots are still tiny as we could with the available space. So I believe we fulfilled all the supplemental requests. It's the same drainage strategy. There's a recharge basin, upper left of the site plan. This same methodology for the foundation with the silt fence and less heavy equipment and a 4-foot frost wall, offset footing. It's all the same as 23.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
I have a question.
Sure. You have the
Surprise,
floor.
surprise. Hello again, Brian. I just wanted to confirm at 25 Wilson's Grove, if all of the variances requested with the zoning have been granted?
We have a zoning hearing next week.
Okay.
I did meet, I believe his name is Zach from Board of Health.
Mhm.
He didn't grant anything, but he did verbally say that he would grant the septic variances because the site is so limited. Nothing's in writing, but he did review it. Zoning has not reviewed the project yet. We have to come here first, so that will be next week.
Okay. I don't think, just as a point of order, you do have to come here first. I think there's no prescribed order, correct?
They just
I
need
mean,
to apply to zoning.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, right. But I know we like to see things last. Maybe zoning does too.
Everybody likes to be
So,
last.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, good
Yeah.
to know. Thank you.
But according to the bylaw, they only need to apply.
So you've applied. Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Forgot. Thanks.
Yep. Other questions from commissioners? Marjorie, are you all set?
I'm all set, it's the same regulation 25 thing and same answer, I'm sure.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Do we want to put the same condition in as far as staff to, if any excavation problems, staff's notified?
I would recommend it.
Okay.
I would too.
Going to go to Dan next to speak on that, or any other questions or concerns that you have?
Nope, again, similar lot to the one next door, very tight, similar project. All the recommendations and concerns were met. So that is not a concern here. So yeah, again, same thing as for the last one. It is so close to the side, I think, not daily reports, but informing us if anything happens. We'll come down to a site inspection and come up with a fix from there, and it will be fixed before construction commences. So yeah, other than that, this is a very similar project. I think the only difference is there's no tree replanting or anything, because there's nothing on site.
Right.
So, yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question before you go to the final vote?
Sure.
Regarding the abutter that was concerned about the water issue
Right.
down there, it's really quite awful, but when it's, when it rains. Is there anything that we can put in as a motion or whatever so that that is considered for 25? I'm not even sure, honestly, what we could say other than, try not to make it any worse for the grading that's there. But I'm very sensitive to that. I mean, I've known that area for 30 years. It's really a shame that the construction is going to make it worse. Do we know that? Can we ask?
Can I comment?
I'll allow that, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. 23 Wilson should be an improvement because we're adding a large recharge basin, we're regrading the entire site, and impermeability is decreasing on the project. So it should be, and we're tying all the gutters directly into the catch basin system. It should be an improvement over what's
You're
there.
saying for 23?
23 should be a marked improvement.
But what about 25? 23?
Yeah.
25 is a slight increase in impermeability, but again, we do have the recharge basin regrading and tying the gutters into the recharge basin. So I can't speak to objectively if that's an improvement, but we could do a second catch basin. I would want to look at that with the civil engineers to see if that's a worthwhile thing, if that would make a difference, but we could certainly consider that if it would be a valuable thing.
I think it would.
That's what I would have
We've also discussed
suggested.
the possibility of vegetative strips to increase, vegetation.
Yeah. Well, just anything that we can do, really. The whole street, you know about it. Kids come down with their little boats. It's just,
Okay.
and it's a beautiful area. I love Bozeman's Grove.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. If you could do something on that regard, and we don't have to make a big stink about it. It seems as though I just wanted to make sure, because I am newer on the commission, so I wanted to make sure that there wasn't something that we were missing that the owners would be happy to do, and that might make it a little less onerous.
Okay, so part of our deliberations, the record will show that the owner's representative is willing to look into the possibility of a second catch basin on 25 due to the slight increase in runoff and impermeability. Okay, so we have that on record.
Is there a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair?
What's that?
Is there a motion on the floor? Okay. Well, I would,
Yeah.
then I would just also contribute by saying absolutely we could request or consider requesting increased stormwater management measures after construction, and then consider adding some conditions for enhanced stormwater management during the construction phase. Because, let's be honest, we're not just talking about rainfall, we're talking about nuisance floods, we're talking about coastal storm flow. It's a lot of water. So, these small efforts, I think, cumulatively can add up, but there are resources and creative solutions available to address even challenges such as what this lot presents in terms of enhanced stormwater management. I think that's absolutely something that we can address, Marjorie.
Good, yeah.
Yep.
That's good. I think everybody's trying to do the right thing, so I appreciate the consideration there. That works.
Okay, anything else? Is Drew still on there? Does he have anything he would like to add?
Yeah, I'm here, Paul. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the public? We're good on that?
I'll say one thing, though.
Yes,
if
go
I
ahead,
could.
Dan.
So for the stormwater stuff, I do want to say that with the flood vents in the basement, that's going to be a big thing for any stormwaters. But also with this road, I think a big consideration has to be taken into that's not on this project, it's on the private road. At the end of the road, it is not deteriorated, it is built up to the point where it's on top of a coastal dune, all pre-existing, 1979. That is, in my opinion, one of the major issues to stormwater on this road, because that goes right into the beach, basically,
Yep.
with a two-step stair. So if you can imagine 2 steps on a stair and the height of that, that's not a very big wall, literally, for the water to get over. So I do think with this, on this project, if there could be another dry well or something like that installed, I think that can be conditioned. I don't feel that this project or the one before it is going to change the makeup on the street of that. I think the road needs attention by the neighborhood, everybody on the road, or whoever owns it, as well as the end of the road needs some kind of attention because it literally is funneling water in during storm events. So that's all I just wanted to say to that.
Thank you.
Okay,
True.
so I would accept the motion.
Make a motion to close an issue at 25 Wilson's Grove with conditions, a second catch basin, a dry well, a vegetative strip, I guess down the middle of the driveway.
In the excavation concern.
Oh, that's right, and the, any excavation concerns during construction to notify staff.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion by commissioners? We're good? Anything else, Marjorie, before I call for a vote?
No, thank you.
Okay. Roll call vote. Let me start with Sandy.
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Vote. Thank you, and I vote yes as well, so motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Okay, our next hearing is 16 Deans Hollow Road, Marianne M. Townsend, trustee, MMT Revocable Trust. This is a proposed vista pruning. The representative is Julia Garden Design.
So today, the representative came up and she wants to withdraw it without prejudice. There was a issue with the plan of record, and it could not be used for this purposes. What's happening is they've contacted an engineer firm to just reevaluate it, and they're going to reapply with a new notice of intent.
Okay.
Good.
Okey dokey.
Withdraw without prejudice.
Yes.
Good. We vote on that. Yes.
We need a motion.
Yes. Yeah, the notice of intent was already filed, so it doesn't need to be voted on.
So they're going to come back with a different NOI.
Completely different submission, completely different DEP number.
All right,
Yes.
so we'll just put this one to sleep. Okay, I would accept a motion for the request to withdraw without prejudice.
So moved.
So,
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Let me just get those two down. Any further questions, comments, or discussion from commissioners before I call for a vote? We're all set? Okay, Sarah, your vote?
Yes.
Marjorie?
yes.
Thank you, Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that was an easy one.
Would that they were also.
Moving on, 34 Triton Way, 11771 Calla Lily LLC. This is a proposed coastal bank stabilization and construction of a concrete retaining wall. Representative is Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. Good evening, gentlemen. If I can have your names for the record, we can get started.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors.
I'm Kanao Lala. I own the Lala Associates Engineers who submitted these plans, prepared these plans.
Okay.
So the project is located at 34 Triton Way. Resource areas on or within 100 feet of the property are the land under the ocean, the bay itself, coastal beach, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Property is currently developed in an existing single-family home. The single-family home dates back to 1967, according to the assessor's records. And we're here tonight looking to do some bank stabilization. If you've been to the site, there's a major eroded bank out back. The riprap itself, according to historical aerials, was constructed sometime in the late 70s. So what we're looking to do is repair, repair the base of the riprap, because it's kind of slumped now if you've seen it. And then we're looking to expand or extend the riprap up landward to about elevation 23. That's the elevation of the flood zone in that area. And then we'd be looking to regrade the slope and construct a concrete wall further up the bank. Once the slopes have been stabilized and regraded, we'll be putting down a jute mat. They'll be hydroseeded with a New England native seed mix, as well as planted with American beach grass. Contractor will be doing all work from the landward side of the home, and won't be done from the ocean, so he'll create a construction path along the side of the house, down the bank, rebuild the existing riprap in sections, appropriate sections, and then kind of, once that's stabilized, construct it further up the slope. And then he'll just kind of work his way back out and up and out of the site. Again, once all the slopes have been regraded, they'll be stabilized with jute mat and planted. If you have any specific questions on the design, either Mr. Lala or myself will be able to address them.
Okay, thank you. Let me go first to commissioners for questions that you might have on this proposal that we have.
Can you just expand a little bit on how you're gonna get all that equipment down there? Gonna come through the property?
Yep, so it would come from the Triton, I guess that would be to the west of the existing house.
Path on the top.
And then it either would become from the north of the house down or the south of the house down. That actual, it's kind of written into the protocol. We would discuss with the agents whether or not it makes more sense to go to the north or south, looking to minimize any disturbance to existing trees there. The machine would come down the slope, create a ramp, and be able to work down at the base. There'll be a machine up the top and a machine at the bottom that moves the new armor stones up and down that slope. Again, would be small manageable sections, probably 5-6 foot sections, and they would just kind of work their way along the riprap and then work their way back along the riprap and then up and out as they regrade the slope.
So when they're done, it's gonna be about the same, it's gonna not be the same height, but it's gonna be at the same elevation. Have I got that right?
So the riprap itself will be higher.
Yeah.
We're gonna raise it up to match elevation 23, which is the flood zone, and it'll tie into the existing ripraps to the north and south of the property. More than likely what happened over the years, this riprap was never truly maintained by the previous owners. And then the waves coming in kind of ate up behind the riprap, causing it to slump.
Sure.
And then the hill above it with the weight, everything came down. I'm not a coastal geologist, but I believe that's probably what happened.
That's how it got there. Yeah, I was just wondering if there was more science to the current condition and what can be done with your proposal to strengthen it somehow. I'm trying to look at, because I'm not, I feel like I want to be on the ground, on the sand, and looking at the elevation to see what how it compares. But is there any restructuring, or I'm not sure, because I'm not an engineer, but it seems as though it's happened and it's gonna happen again, and I'm not sure it would take.
So, I believe part of the reason why more than likely it happened is the height of our riprap is lower than the ripraps to the north and south of us. The waves come in, they overtop the current height of the riprap, it eats away behind it, and that's what causes the slumping and the bank to just kind of collapse down on it.
And what you're proposing will do what that makes that different?
What we're proposing to do is rebuild the riprap that's currently slumped and then bring the height of that riprap up further, up the slope in order to tie into the ripraps to the north and south and hopefully prevent that same riprap from slumping in the future.
Overflow, is that what you're saying?
Correct. The overtopping of the riprap that currently exists.
Yeah. All
So
right.
when the waves break, they'll break on the riprap versus over it and eating away at the slope.
Right.
So the new one will be the same height as the north and south, so it doesn't cause that.
Correct.
So we have to hope that you guys, who are the engineers, are correct in that. To the extent that you can, right?
Okay, other questions?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sandy?
I have a question. I'd like you to explain why there's a need to have a concrete wall at the top instead of doing native plantings, which would
Yeah.
stabilize the...
I'll let
Well,
Mr. Lala address
As you
that.
can see in these sections, we did 4 sections, we did 2 right at the property lines and the 2 in the middle of the wall. And the reason we are doing wall to protect the new house we're gonna be building, that in case we do not put this wall, then there could be, who can guarantee that the 23 is the highest level? What some storm comes which overrides that. And then see the back slope, which we are also filling to whatever erosion has happened, we have to make it good by bringing in new stone and fill it up so that the stable slopes are typically 1 to 3 slope. That is a stable slope. But once you go steeper than that, then it can always erode unless you cover it with these heavy stones. So you can see here from the ocean bank, we have a vertical line. That is what is built with 5 to 6 feet tall, big stones, nicely done riprap to match what has been approved and built on the left side and the right side of the property. And it will be to the same height. And after that, you can see, which is shown like a sandy hatch, that what we have to fill the current position of the eroded soil. And we will have to stop it with some structure, which is our concrete wall. Otherwise, it will keep going all the way to the house. Right now, the current
Well, right,
position.
that's the whole problem, but the riprap then on the neighbors, do they have a wall at the top, or are they just?
No, they don't have, but they have a very stabilized slope with a lot of
Right.
old roots of the trees.
But, so my question is, once you do your extended riprap, wouldn't that stabilize the bank along with?
It would stop
That you wouldn't need the wall?
No, the wall is way up high.
No, I know.
Way up high to protect the land of the house and give them enough yard,
Right,
about
well.
30 to 40 feet of yard, so that they can make use of that property. And we stop, any erosion happens, then we stop it at that wall. It will not go beyond that wall. That would protect the house foundation and the structure of the house.
Anything else, Sandy?
No.
Other questions from commissioners?
I've got some questions.
You might have at least one.
But, oh, yeah. I think, to Marjorie's point, this is an instance where I feel very strongly that peer review would be very helpful. I would like to see an independent report from a coastal geologist speaking to the efforts as proposed for the stability of the coastal bank, because of course, it's our job to consider the coastal bank, not the house. And I do see that that awesome red 1970s house is surrounded by very new, very fancy houses. I'm absolutely certain that there's a commitment to have a house on this property, and I'm not surprised to hear that that's part of the plan. So if we're looking at the disturbance proposed to stabilize the bank, and then we're looking to the future for disturbance proposed to tear down that house that was just not maintained and is in complete disrepair and put another house commensurate with the houses around it, I think we need to exercise a lot of discretionary authority here to ensure that we're doing due diligence to protect the coastal bank. So I am not comfortable moving this forward at all until we've had some independent peer review from a coastal geologist, for starters. And I do also want to note that I don't have a stamp on any of these plans.
No stamp on
I
that?
don't see that these are stamped plans.
We can
which-
submit to you the stuff.
Sure, yeah, that is one of our
We can email you
requirements.
tomorrow.
And I also see that we've got a couple of cesspools on the plan here, so
Cesspools
that's what I'm seeing on your plan.
On page 1?
There are two noted on page 1 of the plan you've
On the
submitted to us.
existing?
Am I,
Right, I'm looking right at it.
Existing
Am I not-
condition? There's no cesspool.
yep. So we've got two cesspools,
Where you say cesspool?
one there, just where the cursor is, and then there's another one just at the top of the property?
Oh,
Yeah,
those
I
are the
think those are old abandoned
original
cesspools.
septic system.
The tank
Okay.
and the leaching pit are active.
Just checking, you know, when
Yeah,
we see a
that's an
cesspool on
existing.
the water, we gotta ask you about
No,
it.
no, existing, which will be demolished.
Of course, of course.
Those cesspools are no longer active.
Because
They're
the-
still in the ground, but they're not
I'm sure,
active.
I know there's nobody in that house either, maybe some squirrels or something.
There's a
but-
tank and a leaching pit.
Okay.
That's the current active system.
Wonderful. And I do want to echo Sandy's concerns and observations just about, you know, vegetation versus concrete walls. I do think that the water coming in and what we're looking at in terms of projected data and science for climate change, the cement wall's not going to
No, that
stop
wall
this
is only
erosion.
protecting the house.
So I think.
It is not protecting erosion.
Understood, but it at the expense of the stability of the coastal bank, which is our purview. So
Well,
I'm
that-
not comfortable with
that
anything
helps
that's
the
proposed.
reducing the slope of the
Sure,
covering the eroded area.
Sure.
If I make it steeper,
sure.
then it will keep on eroding.
No, I
So-
do understand, sir, I
By
do.
building the retaining wall, we
Right.
can reduce the slope.
Sure, and vegetation is our preferred way to
And
stabilize
of course, we
sensitive
clearly
resource
said
areas.
that in our proposal, that it will be
Sure.
hydroseeded and we will put the wetland mix for the ground cover.
Sure.
The bushes which will hold the soil.
Understood.
It's
Thank
very
you.
important.
Yes, I would like to see a report, a peer review
Sure.
report on this one.
Is
Before we
something
move it
you
forward.
have your list of peer review engineers do that?
Do we have a technical service provider list, Dan, or is that something that would?
We do have our consultant and contractor list, absolutely, that I can have forwarded. That's not a problem. Off the top of my head, I'm not too sure on that list for this type of project.
Sure.
But I would imagine there absolutely is one or two or three firms.
Sure.
on it.
Are there state agencies also that provide services? I don't know about the weight.
that
If
I'm just
CZM
not
is something that
100%.
would, okay,
That I'm not too sure. I can definitely
Okay.
look into it, though.
sure.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
All right.
Thanks,
Other
Paul.
questions? I have a question, Dan, either for you or for Drew, maybe both of you. In listening to the presentation, to me, it seemed apparent that the desire for the retaining wall was for protection of this building. Would that second wall, would that qualify, or does that go up against the state regulations? I mean, I know the house was built in 1967. State regulations allow work on armoring banks. Doesn't get into secondary retaining walls at the top of the coastal bank, so I don't know if that's even allowable.
I can speak to that, Paul.
Sure.
So it is allowable because for properties that were developed, abutting coastal banks, eroding banks like these, they are grandfathered in place to armor the bank, whether it be partially or entirely. So they do have that right. They are grandfathered because it's pre-August 17th or August 18th, 1978 was the cutoff to prevent armoring of coastal banks and properties that were previously developed prior to that date.
Yeah.
They are allowed to revet, armor the entirety of the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then down the road, if it were to become a raise and replace, what happens then? Say, for example, if a coastal geologist does not agree that that retaining wall needs to be there,
right,
and then the owners decide that they're going to raise and replace. Now, when that house is raised, do they lose that right to armor all the way up? Because now we're looking at a new
I don't
house.
believe they do, because it's all predicated on when the lot was initially developed, and it doesn't take into account redevelopment.
Okay,
It really is based on that predicated solely on, if the lot was developed or not. And redevelopment subsequent to that is really immaterial to that grandfather right.
okay. That was
But
what,
I do have a suggestion, if I could.
Yes, absolutely.
I agree, there should be looked into with the vertical concrete wall portion of this revetment. Because the walls adjacent to it, you have large revetment stone walls on either side, the properties on either side. And then you have a vegetated slope up to the top. But I understand the concern about the steepness of slope, and that's why they're proposing a vertical concrete wall. But if the other two properties were able to achieve that condition, I don't know why this one can't. Now, having said that, and anyone who's been out to the site, I'm sure you're all too aware of this, how dire the situation is here.
Yep.
And that chunks of this bank can be lost at any given time, even under mild weather conditions. So it's really that bad. So what I would suggest, and it's just putting out there as a suggestion, that, the commission do require, the enlisting of an expert coastal geologist to take a look at this project as a whole, to see if, this revetment approach is good. But maybe, allow staff to work with the property owner to perhaps put in some emergency measures such as nourishment or something to prevent further erosion of this bank while this coastal geologist or, expert review is taking place, because this is a pretty dire situation. And that would be my recommendation in any similar scenario when you've got a bank that's highly degraded and is losing, ground practically by the day. That there be some sort of emergency measure considerations that the commission could sign off on after we have a conversation with, between staff and property owner and consultants, and see what can be done to stem the damage, because it's happening daily. And they got to get on this in some way, shape, or form sooner than later, because it could be a disaster otherwise. So just to put that out there for the commission's consideration moving forward.
I totally agree.
okay, thank you.
Totally.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Drew?
Yes.
What would some of those emergency measures entail to stabilize the bank while the project is being reviewed?
So that's a conversation that needs to take place. So we would certainly get the details on that. But what comes to mind and what's happened in previous, situations like this, from my experience, there would be some allowance for bringing in fill, some sand, just to kind of beef up what's been caved in and lost, and then possibly covered over with erosion matting.
Sure.
Just to stabilize the bank, prevent further damage, put some fill in, but not enough to overtop the bottom portion of the retaining wall that
Sure.
exists. You don't get sand washing into the ocean. Have some erosion control set up at the bottom, and just to bring in some kind of material, akin to what's there, just so the damage doesn't get worse while this extended review, may be taking place.
Okay. Can I just say something quick?
Yes, go ahead, Tim.
Would there be any thought into potentially, if we remove the wall for now, just so we could try to get that riprap repaired, because that, like, ASAP, and then maybe we come back with some type of amendment for the concrete wall portion? I'm just trying to think outside the box. That's what I'm trying to, versus, I'm really worried that a consultant might be, I can't get to this for 6 months. So I'm just trying to think of other ways. And if the consultant comes back and says, no, we're not gonna agree to the concrete wall, then all right,
At least you got to start on the project. Yeah.
at least we have a head start with the riprap repair portion. And then, then we would fill and put the erosion blanket and something to hold it for now until we can get that consultant type review. I mean, I'm just looking for a little give and take. If that means we have to revise the plans and remove the wall and, as long as there's some type of condition that would say that we could come back to amend it if, peer review was supportive of the wall.
I would suggest that we move forward with the peer review, obviously. We would go with the applicant's desire to remove the wall portion of the project for now and allow the project to proceed under the direction of staff for emergency repairs and/or the placement of the riprap, which they have a right to put in regardless of what a coastal geologist says. They have the right to at least bring that riprap up to the same elevation as the two abutting parcels. I would like to see that as a compromise, that we get started on the project, get the retaining wall out of there, because personally I felt the same way looking at these plans. Why do we need this retaining wall? Because there is no retaining wall on the other two parcels, and they're holding tight. So if we can get this project started with that part, if we are in agreement, have the wall removed from the project for now, have a coastal geologist look at it to alleviate anybody's concerns, and then if they do want to bring the wall back in, if it seems to be a logical step, it's allowable by 310 CMR, according to what we heard from the agent.
The DEP comments there were none. I expected if there was gonna be a comment about that wall, it would be right then and there saying you can't, kind of similar to what you're saying.
Well, that's why I asked the question.
You can't double armor it.
Right, that's why I asked the question.
And it was explained to me the way Drew just explained it to you, that we had the right to actually armor it all the way to the top, or armor it, then naturalize it, and then armor again.
I mean, there are provisions, right, in 310 CMR, it's 10.30. That date of August 10th, 1978, certainly is the trigger to grandfather in, as the agent mentioned, but there is language to follow saying, provided that the following requirements are met. Condition 1, a coastal engineering structure or a modification thereto shall be designed and constructed so as to minimize, using best available resources, adverse impacts on adjacent or nearby coastal beaches due to changes in wave action. Condition 2, the applicant demonstrates that no method of protecting the building other than the proposed coastal engineering structure is feasible. And then C is protective planting designed to reduce erosion may be permitted.
Right, and by bringing in that coastal geologist, we would have every one of those points addressed.
Absolutely.
You would have met them all, yeah.
At the same time, allow the project to at least begin.
For emergency management,
the components that, if the commissioners feel amenable to, we could.
Is there any part of the methodology for installing the riprap that we would need to be mindful of in terms of destabilizing the bank further?
It would come down to machinery. That's the thing. So machinery coming into the property is not an issue. I think the right side might be the best of the house.
The southern side.
Yeah, the southern side. I think that might be the best option. On the bank itself, there'll have to be a discussion for that, or if you have any recommendations or thoughts.
Yeah, I would say we have like a site meeting with the contractor. And we talk about that, because obviously we want to minimize any disturbance to that bank.
I know you guys want to build a big fancy
I've
house
seen
there.
it
I get it.
From the previous owner, probably 2.5 years ago when I first got involved.
Yeah.
And nothing was done. And then the new owner recently purchased it, and this wall thing's kind of been going on for a while now, and we really need to address it.
Sure.
And is there work, Tim, to be done on the lower end of that?
The existing part of the riprap?
Yeah, it's down below.
It won't be below mean high water. It's just, they're just trying to take the slump stones, bring them back to the one, I think it's 1.5 to 1 slope, and then continually to build it up.
Okay.
So there's no resetting of toe stones or anything in that case. It's just the armor stones that have slumped need to be kind of grabbed, rebuilt, filter fabric behind it, trap rock, so that you can place them in, and then they'll all get locked in with chink stones.
Okay.
So what's on the floor now, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Do we have a motion?
We do not.
So how do would we,
My recommendation would be that we would have the applicant withdraw the concrete wall, the retaining wall for now. We could have that as a condition of approval. Allow the work to begin, if you feel comfortable doing that. Have a coastal geologist come in while this work is being done, so that they can assess the top portion to see if that concrete wall is an absolute necessity. And if they came along and said it was, then they could come back for an amended order of conditions to include that concrete retaining wall. If the geologist, the specialist says, no, you really don't need that, mitigation will work and the other two are solid, then they could still come back and ask for it, but we would most likely not be in favor of that based on the review that we get, if that's what we did get. I'm just thinking, if it's as bad as I'm looking at, that we should get going on it.
my hope would be also that a coastal geologist might be able to provide some additional options for stabilizing that coastal bank in addition to what's been proposed. So if we start on what's being done as, in the frame of an emergency measure, if the coastal geologist could also be brought in to provide expert opinion on how else to further stabilize that bank, thinking down the road that we're going to be blowing up that lot.
I agree.
That's what I mean. So is there a way to condition emergency stabilization measures as specified and issue this permit, or does it need to be a new application?
I don't believe it needs to be a new application.
I believe it would be the plan before you with me verbally withdrawing the concrete wall, as long as we could come back potentially at a future date, submitting a revised plan, and then hopefully the board voting tonight to allow the reconstruction of that riprap section. And in the meantime, we can talk with Drew and Daniel about the peer review type portion of it for the upper part, to see if that concrete wall is something that the town's peer reviewer would support, or they might have an alternative solution that makes sense for the applicant.
As long as it's in two segments, sequential, I think we're covered. I agree with everything that you've all said, but I think we do have to just be really clear that.
What's approved and what's not, I think, at this point. What's approved and what's not.
When you get started, I gotta tell you, I'm in agreement with everyone who says this is urgent. We could have a storm a week from now, and
Sure.
it could be a disaster. So, as long as it's clear that they get going, pull their idea on the wall for now, get the geologist in, and then, I don't know how you want to word it, Mr. Chairman, but, and then consider the other substantive parts of this proposal.
Right.
I think we're all in agreement.
Sure.
Sounds like.
Can you make a motion, what's currently there, and condition it without the wall?
Right.
To allow them to proceed with conditions of a coastal geologist?
I believe we're within our rights to do that.
Right.
I think.
And, moving forward, I would like to see stamped plans.
Yeah, we'll get them into you
Yep.
tomorrow.
Oh, that's a given.
Okay, and a planting plan as well for the revegetation? I'd like to see a planting plan
Yeah,
for
I
that
think
too.
the stamps, in this case, they weren't stamped, so it's kind of blessing, because then you can go back and edit it as
We
the
can
commission
take the
needs.
wall off.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I don't think that should be an issue. Yeah.
Good deal.
Okay. Okay, who wants to make the motion?
Do it?
If I forget something, you can.
I got you.
Make a motion to close an issue at 34 Triton Way with a condition that the concrete vertical wall will be deleted for this time until a coastal geologist can do a study on it, but allow the remaining project to continue.
Yes. And the concrete wall
Yeah.
can come back with an amended order.
And the concrete wall can come back with an amended order.
Sure. And the peer review to extend to the whole project?
Yes.
Not just the concrete wall?
As well as
Right.
so the peer review as well.
Yep.
And the peer review.
Good.
And then including conservation staff, right, in any pre-construction
Yeah,
site
that would
visits
be
to
normal
address emergency
conditions on
measures.
the
That will be, so, yeah, so with any approval of permit,
Perfect.
there'll be two forms called, literally Forms A and B, go figure.
Yeah.
And that's how we will facilitate the
Fantastic.
construction from there, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
All righty.
is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. So the motion now is up for deliberation amongst commissioners. Last minute questions, concerns? One question I have
This
is.
is how government's supposed to work.
Yeah. I have a question, or a point to bring up as far as the peer review. How is that going to play out? Are we providing a list to the applicant, or is the applicant going to do this on their own?
I can provide a list to you, if you know anyone, or we can discuss it as well, just to kind of narrow it down.
Yeah, I can give you a call.
Okay, yeah, that's
I
perfect.
won't call you tomorrow.
don't.
This is my fourth night of meetings, so.
oh boy. Do we need to
I'll be in late.
specify
I'll call you
coastal
Monday.
geologist? for peer
It will be
review?
a coastal
Yeah.
geologist.
Do we need to specify that in the
Oh, he did.
petition, though? Okay.
And the peer review, is this under Massachusetts General Law 4453G, or is this something different? Drew, you might be
It
able to
is
help.
under, yeah, it's under 4453G,
Okay,
you know, for a peer review.
yeah,
Just a quick comment, just for clarification's sake. So when you say you want a coastal geologist, and I understand, you know, if you're allowing, what I heard in the motion, to have, you know, the lower portion up to, but not beyond where the concrete wall is proposed to be built, but you want a peer review for all of that, but you're allowing that to happen, so I'm just trying to reconcile the timing of everything, because from my take, it seems like it's the vertical wall that's the issue that, you know, questionable as far as that overall, you know, methodology for the top of the bank.
yep.
And any sort of, you know, a coastal geologist is probably going to lend really good expertise on existing coastal resource areas. But when it comes to armored banks, you may want to, you know, engage with a coastal consultant who has, you know, surveyors on their staff, coastal geologists on their staff, folks who can look at, you know, structure above the mean high water as far as, you know, stability and things like that. So I would just recommend, instead of being so specific as a coastal geologist, instead, you know, requiring a coastal consultant.
Okay.
Because I think they have many more varied resources at play, you know, at your disposal to give you a more thorough review than just a coastal geologist.
Fair enough.
Works for me.
Yeah, sounds great, Drew. Thanks.
And again, that's under General Law 4453G, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hash all that out with the applicant.
All right.
All the details of that, so we can take care of that as staff.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the motion so that we knew what we were dealing with.
Yep, same here.
Good. Okay. Any other last-minute concerns before I call for a vote? We're good? Marjorie, you're all set?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sarah, your vote.
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that
Thank you for your
motion
time.
carries.
Thank you for working with us.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Get going on that.
And just quick question, when I send you this stamped drawings, probably Monday, should I remove the wall and then send it? So it doesn't
Yes,
show the wall?
yes,
in
remove
my
the wall for now, because that will be the plan of record, so yes, please do.
Extend the grading to that.
Yep, just remove the wall and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm trying to find my agenda. Got so many windows open here, I can't see.
COC.
We have a certificate of compliance for 31 Fiddler Crab Lane, Prescott White and Adam Eckhart. That's DEP file number 0433231, and that has passed inspection, so there's paperwork that will be coming around for you to sign. Going back to...
Paul, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I had a thought when it comes to COCs, just as a matter of housekeeping.
Sure, go ahead.
And commission choice, obviously, but I would recommend, because I've seen other commissions do the same, that for COCs, just like you would for extension permits or any other permits, that you have a motion and second and roll call vote for COCs, because you are signing these permits just like any other one.
Okay?
And I think that would be a better protocol moving forward to include COCs in that process.
Just to have it on the record.
Exactly.
Okay.
Drew, I'm really glad you brought that up, because actually I requested the plans for the COC, and I would actually really like to see the as-built plans and the compliance statements before I sign the permit or hear a little bit more about it. And I did go out to this property, and one of the things on the COC is I had some questions. So I would love the opportunity before we make a motion and do a roll call vote just to ask the agents about a couple of points of clarification, if that's reasonable. So I saw that the work was completed summer of 2023, and it's winter of 2025. There was a 3-year monitoring and maintenance plan conditioned for a lot of buffer plantings. And I'm just curious how it is we're signing off on compliance for that and 3 years worth of compliance reports if we're only a year and a half in. And I did go out today. I know it's not the best time to look at the condition of plantings, but they look pretty sad. But I don't look at these all the
Everything looks sad
time.
out there now.
That's right. Everything looks sad. So I just wanted to confirm my understanding that we're noting compliance of 3 years worth of compliance reports when we haven't had time to do that monitoring.
Yeah, so I can answer that.
Sure.
So any sort of condition that's in an order of conditions, whether it gets closed out or not, is going to be enforceable because it's been recorded, even if it goes, even if a permit is closed out, because this is, monitoring and maintenance of mitigation plantings, and it is a condition stated in the order. So closing it out doesn't mean that specific condition is closed out. That extends beyond closing out. But if it makes, folks more comfortable, we can approach the applicant and say if there's no rush to close this out, and the commission would prefer to wait until the end of the 3-year mitigation monitoring period is complete and see what the plantings look like at that time. We can certainly reach out to the applicant to see if they would be amenable to that. Sometimes, because as you know, recording of the permit places a lien on the deed, and if they want to sell their house or transfer, and all these conditions would go with that, to any new homeowner, they would be equally obligated. That could be the reason why they're applying for a COC now. I just don't know the answer to that. But to answer your first question, this condition doesn't go away because they get a COC. It still has legal standing and enforceability.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I noticed in the order of conditions, there are some conditions that are into perpetuity when the property changes hands. This is right on the water. If the vegetation isn't well established, a year and a half in, I just wanted to make sure we're doing our due diligence.
It has to be, according to the condition in the order, it has to be maintained to a 90% success rate at the end of 3 years. And if that doesn't happen, the commission has the right to extend that monitoring period for as long as it takes to achieve that threshold.
How did it look to you all when you went out there?
It looked good. I mean, it looked, like some plants probably did expire, or maybe struggling. It can get kind of tricky when you're planting on a sloping bank, but, with washout and things like that. But the first report was submitted and did say the plants, were in good health, but that didn't account for the winter. So we'll see what the spring report reveals. And, at the end of the monitoring period, we'll see where we're at, where we land. And if it's, less than 90% or needs enhancement or any of those considerations, we'll make sure that the property owner, adheres to that standard.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Fair enough.
Point of procedure clarification. Drew, you said that other commissions do a motion and a roll call vote on these COCs. What happens for a commissioner that had nothing to do with the project as far as issuing the order, deliberating on it, and so on and so forth? Because would they be eligible to vote on the certificate?
That's a good question, whether it takes them going back, because sometimes we have these COCs that are several years later from the order. So,
I mean, it may come down to 1 or 2 commissioners that are still left on the board that have that length of history,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I honestly, Paul, I don't know the answer to that. That may have been the case previously, but I would think that as long as you've got a quorum and you trust staff to, complete the inspection, I think you're in good shape. But honestly, I don't know the answer to that specifically. Yeah. We can certainly find out.
Yeah, we should probably research that a bit, just so that we're, not doing things erroneously. But for now, I'll entertain a motion to at least get this one. We don't know if there's a rush on this. Do we know that?
No, I don't know. I mean, I only assume that, people are just, when it comes to COCs, they just want to close things out for housekeeping purposes.
Right.
A sale or transfer or what have you, so I don't know the answer to that, but we can find out.
I actually would be more comfortable waiting. If there
Table it?
hasn't been a request by the applicant, because it's, my name is one of the names on the permit.
Sure.
Making sure that we're not saying something is done and then it's not done. And then in the future, if there's a way to think about, maybe the monitoring and maintenance or the operation and maintenance plan for mitigation plantings, I wonder if that could be worded differently in the order of conditions, so that we don't have to wait 3 years or 5 years
Right.
for this particular element. It could just be into perpetuity or to that 90% success rate, as you just mentioned. There's a lot of good language on the table. Obviously, none of that is going to make a difference for this one, but I would be more comfortable waiting until at least we've got, a growing season in. We can see how they did over the winter.
Well, then, I would suggest a motion to table to March 20th, and that would give staff time to research the issue, whether if it needs to be done right away or not. We could deal with it on the 20th. We could look back at the minutes of 0433231, see who the commissioners were that deliberated on that.
Sure.
And then we'd be on solid ground. Does that sound? I think that sounds like the best procedure so I would accept a motion from somebody.
Make a motion for 31 Fiddler Crab Lane to table until March 20th.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and according to Robert's Rules of Order, a motion for table has no deliberation, you go right to the vote. So, Sarah?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Marjorie? She's still there?
Yep. No, she's not.
She's not, okay.
She must be 9.
And I vote yes as well. So we'll table that to our next meeting, okay? All right, moving back to pre- and post-hearing agendas. We have approval of draft minutes for December 12th, 2024, and eligible to vote on those of the people that are here would be Sandy, Sarah, Neil, and myself. I've looked at those draft minutes. I saw a couple of issues, so I don't know. One of the things that I saw, I think you were referring to Dan, and it says Mike in the minutes.
No, I double checked because Drew saw the same thing, and I was going to mention that if there wasn't. Dan had said something about Mike scheduling. Legal agreements between the town and tribe council, Mike to facilitate legal aspects. So,
Mike.
no?
I do not know.
Okay, I listened to the recording too
Understood,
again,
okay.
and it does say
I
that,
must have
so
misspoke.
I'm not sure.
I was going to highlight it, but I wasn't able to mark the document.
Yeah, so I can just put your name if you want, instead of Mike, just put
Yeah,
Dan?
yeah, put
Okay.
mine. I checked with legal on that, so.
Okay, so I'll
Or
replace
have been
the-
checking, so.
Yeah, I believe it was, I believe it's referring to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And on page 5 at the top, there's a header for water quality report and regulation discussions, but it's a continuation of bulleted information for Chapter 173 regulation draft. So I think that heading has to be either deleted or moved or something, because all of the bullets refer to the draft, right? Town council comments, addition of passive recreation activities, suggested to add footnote for permissible passive activities. So that, do you see where I'm looking at that, Alyssa?
I'm pulling it up as you're talking.
Okay. It's right at the very top of page 5. I think it's just a heading that's out of place.
Water quality support and regulation discussion. I think it's because that was a discussion that you had, and that's just the title that I put.
Okay.
Regarding that. But if you want me to find a way to rephrase it so that it's a little bit
As long as
I guess understand.
as long as it's noted as an edit, so that if I get a motion to accept these, those will be with those edits, okay? I didn't see anything else. Sandy, did you say you saw something there?
I think it was page 7 under 42 Sandy Way. There's continuance, should be, it's left out.
7?
Yeah, on page 7, it's 42 Sandy Lane.
I forgot the word continuance.
Yeah, it may have just.
Proposed system, agent comments, motion.
And then for 157 Daniels Island Road, I believe we had a whole set of conditions on the first motion. There were like 6 that didn't make it into the minutes.
7 Daniels.
157 Daniel Island. It was a long thing, and then we amended the motion.
Right.
And that's what made it in. Like we had a patio, pervious material, cobble apron at the bend of the
Mhm.
driveway. There was
Yep.
like 6 of them.
Okay. Well,
Patio to,
Yeah.
patio pervious.
All right, we'll-
Install apron at the bottom, erosion control improvement,
Yeah.
permanent edging, okay.
Yeah.
Add all, I gotta add all that.
All right,
Page
well,
7?
given those edits,
Oh, page 7 was 42 Sandy Way. I don't know what page. the
That's all
one-
right, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, so given those, those edits, I would rather see a motion to table accepting these and,
Before also, just because I already submitted these minutes, Drew did catch another edit that I needed to make.
Oh,
On
okay.
Page 3, I want to say, I had mentioned Catherine Fisher from Natural Resources, and he was correct, it's the wrong person. I put the woman from Public Works, and forgive me, I don't remember her last name at the moment.
Public Works?
Catherine.
Laurent,
Laurent.
yeah,
Laurant.
Yes, her, so I did change that.
okay,
I got that
yeah,
as
I see
well
that.
as well.
Catherine Fisher, Natural Resources. Okay, so, yeah, why don't we, I'll look for a motion to table these to our next meeting, and we can get this cleaned up.
So moved.
Thank you, Sandy. Is there a second?
Second?
I gotta look at the people that, hold on. I'm in the wrong
I can
screen.
second that motion, yeah.
I'm looking for the person who's eligible. Hold on. I think it's Neil. You
Yes.
second that? Okay. So the motion is made and seconded. No deliberation. You will take a roll call vote. Sandy?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, that motion carries. So we'll get those cleaned up and get them into our next
No, I'll clean them up.
hearing. Thank you. Great. Moving on to discussion for water quality issues and initiatives, ongoing discussion item. Anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? There was I didn't attend it, but there was a Zoom session that was put on by the Cape Cod Commission today for freshwater ponds, their new initiatives, and fairly well attended. I think there were close to 30 different people on that Zoom connection, and there was some interesting talk about climate change and lack of recharge from a group in Falmouth. They're concerned about dropping levels in the freshwater ponds, and there was another person in there that was referring to there's more ponds on the Cape that aren't being monitored than the ones that are. So there's a lot still to be done out there. Earlier tonight, I pointed out Regulation 24. I really believe that when we start to see any increase in flow of a septic tank because of the water quality issues that this town is facing and the amount of money that this town is spending to clean that up, to see systems being given a go-ahead for an increase in flow, I really believe that that's a cumulative effect on the groundwater, and it's really not doing us any good whatsoever. So in the future, any systems that I see coming that have an increase in flow, whether they're approved or not, and I understand that's a Board of Health purview, I get it. This is our purview, Regulation 24, and it's as clear can be. that we are charged to protect that groundwater, and adding in another 110 gallons, 220 gallons, and I don't care if it's coming out of an IA or if it's coming out of a wastewater treatment plant, there's still nitrogen. It's not potable water. So all we're doing is we're putting more nitrogen into the groundwater before we take a single part per million out, and that's getting us nowhere. And it's not only an environmental issue, it's an equity issue. There's a lot of people in this town that are going to be spending a lot of money to clean up that environment. And then we get projects that come forward asking for putting more effluent into the groundwater. I'm at a loss to understand it, but I will look at that regulation. I'll bring it up each and every time. And I'll move on to Regulation 25. As you know, all of the comments that commissioners made were recorded at our last meeting. We have a bylaw review subcommittee meeting that's coming up on March
Monday.
10th, 11th?
Monday, yeah.
It's early next week. And all of those comments will be factored in to the draft, and that will come back at our March 20th meeting for your review, and we'll go from there. But there's nothing new since our last meeting. But I do see some people from the public, and I don't know if they're here to comment on that.
No, we're here for the next item.
Oh, you're here for the next? Okay. So is there any questions on that draft? I know, Rich, you weren't here for the last one. If you do have the draft 7 that was returned if there's anything that you see in there or want to see in there that isn't in there,
Okay.
if you want to just send that along to the office, because we're going to meet early next week.
Okay, will do.
Okay, great. Next item is the Pompanesett Beach Association, Vista Pruning on Dean's Pond, NOI forthcoming. Good evening.
Good evening, Bob Orsi, on the Board of Directors of the Pompanesett Beach Association, and with me is Heidi Delaclis, who's also on the board, who chairs our pond subcommittee. Just as a point of order, as a retired town council, you all don't need to have served on the prior, Drew's right, if you're signing a certificate of compliance, they don't assume that everybody stays on the commission forever. So if that helps you, if it doesn't.
I feel like I've been on here forever, but.
I know. Anyway, hi. So I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with Dean Pond. Dean Pond has a footpath on the northern side for part of the pond. And where that footpath is, that land is owned by the Pompanesett Beach Association, as is the little sliver of land that runs from the path side down to the pond. In the past, homeowners have come to the commission for a permit to do vista pruning in the area, and sometimes we get notified, sometimes we don't get notified, and we had a policy in the past of just working with the homeowners to let the homeowners prune in that area. We've long since come to the conclusion that that's not a good idea, that if there is a violation, we're the ones who are responsible for it. So what we want to do is come in and file with you and get an approval to do vista pruning with a clear set of conditions so that we're not going to be in violation. And we can tell homeowners, we don't want you pruning in that area. We had a recent instance where some pruning was occurring and Heidi actually went out and stopped it. So sometimes it happens without you knowing and without us knowing, and we wind up calling Drew and telling Drew, you need to come out and take a look at this. We're very comfortable working with Drew. This is similar to probably 10, 15 years ago. We were entering into escrow agreements with homeowners on the beach when they were before you, and you were giving them conditions to come to us on our property, and that didn't work out too well for us. So I think the position that we're now in is if work is going to be done in any area that we own, we should be doing the work. We should be coming to you for an approval and a list of conditions, and that way if it's done wrong, you know to come to us.
Right.
And you're going to come to us anyway, because if a homeowner does it and it's not done right, it's not their land, it's our land. So that's what we wanted to talk about tonight, is we want to come in and file with you. We wanted to have an informal meeting, just see if you had any questions or concerns we should try to address as we put the submission together.
I agree with you 100%. If you have a homeowner that's on your property doing vista pruning, we go to the owner of record, and it's on you, not them.
Yep.
So it's good that you're entertaining that thought. I would suggest that you just follow the vista pruning regulations that we have. I believe that's in Regulation 29.
It is, yep, I was just gonna.
You know, there's all kinds of guidelines in there to follow, certain percentage of the amount of material that you're going to be taking out, given the length of the boundary of the lot. I believe is it 25%?
25%.
Well, this is a little unique, because it'd be the whole pond.
If I could just speak to the reason why I had them come in
Sure.
with this particular approach is because, yeah, the Reg 29 is the correct regulation that deals with the protocols for vista pruning, but the whole reg is really worded with single-family lots in mind and not multiple family lots and not large stretches of association land that is essentially one parcel. So it's a different animal, so to speak, than what you typically see for vista pruning, which is predicated on 25% of the linear frontage along a water body or a wetland, if you're looking at a single-family lot. So it's a different, this is the reason why I wanted them to come in, to get your kind of, just to present the scenario here, is that when you're dealing with a strip of land like a condo association or association land in this case, vista pruning needs to be kind of tailored to the setting. So, you go by every stretch of, say, every 100 feet, you get 25%, get the total linear frontage. And the way that this should really be approached in a permit request with the blessing of the commission and after deliberation, is to try and figure out where you're going to establish corridors, because you have multiple homes that abut this vegetated area between those homes and PBA, and that's on PBA property. So the plan, that's going to come along with this notice of intent needs to be carefully crafted to take into consideration who's going to acquire a view corridor, and is it going to adhere to, let's just say it's 50 feet when you're dealing, it's for every 200 feet you get 50 feet of a view corridor. So you want to plan that out accordingly, to make sure that you're accommodating views for most of the homeowners, because that's the whole objective here is vista pruning. So it's a different kind of approach using Reg 29, but Reg 29, as you all know, is worded with vista pruning for single-family lots, and this is kind of more like a condo setting or a large stretch of association land with multiple lots. So that's why I wanted to have them come in so you guys can just be aware of the setting, and that vista pruning protocols will have to be kind of tailored to this specific setting moving forward.
Drew, a quick question. We have time constraints between November and March, correct?
Yeah, November 1st to March 1st.
So-
They can apply pruning, whenever they want, but they are going to be beholden to that time of year restriction for actual activity.
Right, so that's one parameter that's not negotiable because of wildlife concerns.
Correct.
Okay. Quick thought that I have would be, the bylaw review subcommittee's got pretty good knowledge of all these regulations. We could maybe do some discussions in that subgroup and bring them before the commission. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And also, just so you know, that there are two previous, and we can send these out to the commissioners if they want to have a reference. There's two previous vista pruning permits that have been issued that are very similar to this setting. One is for Bayview condos, which is in South Mashpee, faces out towards Jacob Pond. They got a vista pruning permit from a previous iteration of the commission. And then more recently to that is Katuah Bay condos, right on the town line between Mashpee and Barnstable.
Right.
So you can take a look at, how those were approached. I think those would be your best examples because it's very similar to this setting. And we can take a look at that in bylaw review and send that information out to the commissioners to see how they, made that work for this type of setting in other examples.
Right, and those documents could also be provided to the PBA for their review, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it would be a great reference
Just so
to
we
that.
save a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. What kind of a time frame are you looking at in terms of this NOI forthcoming?
We don't have any real time
You
frame
don't,
in mind. We wanted to get the ball rolling and make sure we had any concerns that you had addressed.
Right.
Whether we do it in the next 6 months is, as summer starts to come, things start to get a little bit nuts, but we had some pruning that was done without us knowing, which is really
Sure.
what prompted this, was we really need to get in and get control of this and get the permit in hand. And also, just to make clear, if you go down there, you'll see where the path is, and our ownership of that land is crystal clear. As you go further along the pond, once the path ends, it's, I hate to use the word murkier with a pond, but it's, the ownership is a little bit murkier, and New Seabury has told us time and again, it's all yours, you guys deal with it. But we're not going to be applying for further down, just along where the path is, because we know we have complete ownership of that.
And that'll all be in the plans that come in anyways, so we'll know
Yes.
exactly where you are. Well, you kind of missed the, November to March
Yep.
window anyway, so that gives us
Ideally,
some time to kick it around and
Tackling the problems as they come up. There's only
we
so
do
many
here
of
every
us.
2 weeks.
Ideally, if we can get the NOI this year, then
Yeah.
maybe to start with some pruning over next winter.
Have it ongoing. I did want to mention too, and thank you all for staying until almost 10 PM to talk about
Yeah, it's a
this.
long haul.
This is a late night for everybody. In Regulation 29, there is a small provision for condominium complexes that, as Drew mentioned,
Yep.
says this has to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But the language does say, in addition to the time, that all pruning work must be carried out by a licensed and certified landscaper, arborist, and/or horticulturalist without exception. So, I don't know if there's some signage to erect, just to, let your association members know, or
That is on our list of
would
things
be
to discuss.
snippers.
is
Sure.
We're sort of
Just-
riddled with signs, but I'm starting to feel like signs are in order. I mean, you're putting signs down in the pond, you're sort of
Sure.
taking away from the beauty of it.
You
But the
can't
same
look at
token,
the
we hear
pond,
from
right?
people, I didn't know, or
Sure.
everybody else was doing it, so I'm doing it.
Sure.
And I'm thinking a sign is an appropriate way of telling people, putting a marker down saying, we don't need you doing this.
So, and there are various ways to do that don't detract, or, I've seen, QR codes, like a guided walk, and people just get a little earful that says, hey, don't do this, and this is why. But, one of the other things that I would just offer as a suggestion is that there is a provision in here that pruning should be carried out in such a way to, and it identifies the priorities, right? Preserve vegetative layers, habitat, and biodiversity to the greatest extent possible. So for the NOI, it would be great to see some technical content from a specialist to ensure that those provisions are being met.
Yeah. And we are working
Suggestion,
with,
of
we are
course.
working with people.
Sure, of course you do.
Okay,
Thank you.
so at some point, you'll see a notice of intent. But thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks for waiting. Next on our list is the Climate Resilience Initiative and Resolution that has been brought forth from Commissioners Thornbow and Zolo. I've looked through the resolution. I've marked up a few things that I'm concerned about. I also took the liberty to pass out, strictly as an FYI, all of the materials that I had for fertilizer issues that are being worked on through the town of Orleans and Wellfleet and Eastham, and there's 5 others, I don't remember exactly who they are, but they're before the state legislature now in bills that they hope are going to come forward. Given the fact that we have 4 commissioners out of 7 that are still with us, I would think that we should maybe table this thing.
I was just gonna say
until
that.
we
Sure. And plus,
get
it's almost 10
some of
o'clock.
these-
It is almost 10 o'clock,
especially
and
with
Commissioner
one of the
Zolo's
persons
not
that
here.
brought it forward, yeah, she's not here, so I'd take a motion for that.
I make a motion to table.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Rich did.
Rich?
Yeah,
Second,
he
yeah, I'm
seconded.
sorry.
Okay, and a motion to table, there is no deliberation, so I'll take a vote. Sarah?
Sure, yes.
Okay, Sandy?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The rest are updates, but before we go into those, I know, Sarah, you mentioned an additional topics,
I do have one.
so I'm
Sorry,
going
it's 10, I'll be quick.
I'll
be
take that
quick.
before the updates.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So I made a request this week to Stacy, our incredible admin, for printed copies of the plans in advance of the meeting. I find it a lot easier to do a thorough evaluation of the plan when it's not on a screen. I can mark it up and I can take it out in the field. And there were a couple of things that came out of the conversation with Stacy about how best to accomplish that. One of them is that our current submission requirements have applicants submit 1 original and 7 copies of all of the printed plan sets. We now have, with all of our associate members, if full attendance, we have 9 commissioners. And so with the original going into a document management system in the office, not to be touched, and one of the printed copies going to the agents, not everybody gets printed copies at the meetings. And I understand now why Stacy's so adamant that we tell her whether or not we're coming, because we don't have enough copies to go around, and printing additional copies at this time, it's been reported to me that's outside the capacity. But I really would like printed copies. So one of the things that I did commit to Stacy to do on tonight's meeting, even though we're missing several commissioners, is to find out if there's anybody else that would like printed copies, either prior to the meetings, or, you know, if digital copies work for folks, just to get a gauge to see if we can start the process of coming up with a solution so that everybody has the information they need in the format they need it to do what we're being asked to do. And I picked up the copies, you know, I had to bring them in tonight. If there were any that were continued, I have to turn them back in to Stacy. It's just, it's very tenuous, the document management system right now. And I was able to pick these up 2 days ago, which is not a lot of time to review all these projects. So I just wanted to put it out there, a request for anybody else. I understand there have been other requests for printed plans as well. So just wanted to put it out there for discussion, maybe a raise a hand of who could really benefit from having the printed copies beforehand, and if there are any ideas from the agents about how we might address
Okay,
the scarcity
I'm
issue.
just the opposite. I'm fine digital. I keep everything on my laptop, and I can scale it for my scale. So I have no, and I bring the laptop out in the field, and I'm good. But I understand the whole scenario. A quick fix would be the bylaw review subcommittee, just change the number of copies that we're requiring. Just go from 7 to 10.
Put it on the applicant, yeah.
You know, that's a very quick, easy edit, and we just bring it forward and push it along. But I don't know how long that's going to take, so.
When, if at all possible, with adding more work to Stacy, when would they be available? Because I'll be honest with you, it certainly would be helpful, but I try to go out there when I have available time, and if you tell me 2 days before, like, I don't think I can get it.
I know.
Squeeze it in, especially with the weather and everything else.
She
your job.
says she doesn't usually put the books together until like Thursday. So Tuesday, she said, was the soonest. So that was another question is, you know, when they're turned in, can we just come and pick them up? Because I know there are submission requirements that say they have to be turned in, what is it, the Friday before? The Thursday before? So I don't know if that's just working with Stacy to identify what would work best to ensure we're not misplacing copies, or maybe we go sign them out. But I'm the same, Rich. I've got very limited windows of time, and they fluctuate. So having them as soon as possible, you know, similar to when we get the emails, would be great for me. So
I'll bring that up in bylaw review subcommittee as far as the number of copies. I don't see why we can't move the number of copies up. That might help a little. You know, we just change the regulation.
even if they're not, you know, plotter sets, even if it's just like 11 by 17 or something that, you know, I can carry and mark up.
Well, part of it too is that we have a full board with 2 associates, which I'm glad we had an associate tonight, because we would have been short on a quorum. So, and that's a good problem to have. I'd rather just change the regulation and get more copies in here.
I'd rather see full size, just because.
It's very small.
And they get,
Yeah,
11 by 17, some of those plans.
We can definitely arrange something.
These shrunk down to 11 by 17 can be tough to read.
Sure.
Okay.
And they're not at scale at that point.
Sure. It's a good
Go back up to the updates then?
That one, and then just another conversation with Stacy about the possibility of using Dropbox rather than all of the emails. Dropbox is a secure file sharing cloud-based system. It's used by other conservation commissions throughout the Commonwealth. It's also used with, you know, organizations, agencies, universities. And what it would do is allow the staff to put all of the documents in one place. The commissioners have access to that one place instead of getting 10 emails with attachments that we have to download in order to preview. We get one email saying, all the documents are there, you can go and check them out. And as the revisions come in, they get added to the Dropbox. So it would reduce the volume of emails. It would put everything in one place. And on my system, I can't preview any of the files without downloading them right? So it would save space. I'd be able to access it from my phone.
Right.
It would just simplify things. So I just wanted to put that out there for consideration. She said we needed to check with ID.
Yeah, we'd have to check with IT.
For security.
For security, they have changed a lot of systems lately.
Okay.
For security reasons,
course.
obviously. So I think Drew might have checked with IT.
Oh, cool.
I'm just not sure of the answer.
I mean, you know, email attachments are not all that secure.
Yeah.
Right, they're not like encrypted or anything, so we're not, you know.
So Drew did check with IT, and the answer is no.
The answer is no on Dropbox?
He was not able to do the Dropbox.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you why, but yeah.
Is there another alternative that would be available that we could explore, maybe ask a question
I
to?
could ask.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
I know nothing about the internet world, or technology.
Well,
So-
lucky you, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of other alternatives, but I don't know if, you know, as being a former IT person myself, the issue is security. And it's not on the Dropbox end, it could be on the end of somebody else coming in.
Sure.
Especially in light of just what happened over in Bourne, they had a big hack over there, and, you know, there was ransom stuff that was put on their server, and they had to go through hell to get it all squared away. So, but we'll ask. I think it's certainly doesn't hurt to ask.
Great, thank you.
Okay, moving back up to updates, unless there is something pressing in there, Dan, because of the hour.
There is no updates pressing. Drew is on, but it seems the sound is not working.
Dan,
Yeah,
is there an update on the tribal co-management focus group? Have we scheduled a meeting yet?
So I have not.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for a response to them. What I have done, in light of the waiting, I have reached out to conservation restrictions on most of Conservation Commission properties.
Cool.
To discuss with them, to make sure we have no hiccups going forward, but also to make sure that with some of the stuff that might be talked about or resolved or planned on or whatever between the tribe and the commission, I wanted to make sure that they know of some of the ideas, but also that if there's any immediate no's, they would know. And what we came down to is when the talks start, once the focus groups start having meetings, I'm going to schedule with, for instance, the state to have their CR person come in and actually talk to the focus group to be on the same page for that property. One of them in particular is on Great Oak Road over at Jehu Pond. There's a lot of conservation there that commission runs, and it is all CR by the state.
And is that DAR? I mean, who administers the
DCR.
CRs for?
DCR.
Oh, DCR,
Yeah.
okay.
So they do that. I've been in touch with the State Fish and Wildlife as well because of other properties.
Sure.
So I have been reaching out to CRs to kind of get their gauge, but also to put it on their radar.
Cool.
So yeah, so that's what I've been doing in the meantime.
DCR has a new tribal liaison rep.
They informed me.
Leah
Yeah,
Hopkins Perry.
it was a great conversation. I actually met with them today.
Fantastic.
So it was
Yeah.
great.
Well, I wonder if we could just maybe poke again and see if we could get that meeting scheduled.
Yeah, I will.
All right, well, let me know if there's
Is that,
anything.
and I don't know if you even have the answer to this, is that something that the tribal council appoints?
Yes, so I talked to Chairman Whedon, and
Yes.
well, not appoints, I'm sorry. So I talked to Chairman Whedon, and they will be discussing it within the council.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you if they have already. And he said he will be including members of the tribe, whoever gauges interest.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll see on
All
that.
right,
But
so we might just be waiting for them to meet and deal with that.
Sure.
yeah, I know obviously recently, this past week, they had a
Yeah,
passing, so
yeah,
that's
there's been-
the thing. And also they had the election.
Yep.
So I know that. So,
Yeah.
so it's been a awkward time for scheduling, but that
Maybe
is the
by our
deal.
next meeting, we'll have some
Okay.
information on that. Okay, so if there's no other necessary updates, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Sandy, is there a second?
Second.
This is the saddest part of the night. But I know there's no deliberation, so Rich, I'm going to ask you first.
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
And I vote